There you go.
Look at us.
Fantastic. All right, so it's March 21st, 2024 at 7 p.m. This is the town of Wellington, Connecticut's Board of Finance budget meeting. And it's being called to order, starting with seating of alternatives, which will not be needed. Next, we will go to approval of minutes for March 14th, 2024. We have a motion for the minutes.
I'll move to accept the minutes of March 14th, 2024 with with one amendment proposed, and that's on the last page. If you could just say, it's middle in the good and welfare, it was noted that a sign with the limits in the room, that a sign with the limits is in the room, but not yet posted. Thanks.
And I actually have one, but I couldn't have adjourned this from Vermont, so.
No, did you
What's that?
Wasn't there something you wanted to clarify from?
Yeah, but that's for the minutes of last week that were already approved, so I just want to
Okay.
clarify them. Say that
Yeah,
now.
you want to-
Yeah, just,
Go into the minutes.
I was not here for the approval of the minutes of the March 7th minutes. So I would like to clarify the record. There were some numbers that were given out about ratios of fire and ambulance calls to other towns. And it should say that it should clarify that it was 3 years ago after a Board of Finance analysis. It's not present day numbers, but I had the context in the statement, but it didn't make it into the minutes. And the other thing was top of page 9. It says it's a payroll discussion and it's about the ambulance payroll and firefighter payroll. And it says payroll for both departments is, the increase in payroll for both departments is 3.8%. And it should say Wellington Fire Department #1, because that's the one with the payroll. Okay.
All set. So all for approving the minutes for March 14th, 2024, say aye. Aye.
Is there a second?
I second.
A second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. They've been approved. So next we have present to speak, public participant.
Today's the 21st.
It is. We jumped to the 14th. That's what we just did. Okay, sorry.
Always confused with both these.
Just going too fast, that's all.
Present to speak, public participation is desired and encouraged. Speakers will be limited to time and appropriateness of comments to maintain progress, stay on topic, and maintain the quorum. Do we have anybody for present to speak? Mike?
Mike McCoo, Clover Springs Drive.
Excuse me, before you go on, is the camera on?
No, it's not.
No, there's no camera.
It would be very helpful if there was a camera.
Agreed.
Thank you.
You all set now?
Sorry, Mike.
Ah,
Clover
Also,
Springs.
Can I ask a question?
Go ahead, Eileen.
I don't know who seconds the motion for the minutes, 'cause I couldn't.
Jason Ross.
Jason Ross did.
Okay, Mike,
Okay.
I'm good.
So, having been intimately involved in this budget process, on the Board of Finance for 5 of the last 6 budget seats, I'm very aware that this is a tough time now, pulling it together. And I just wanted to encourage the board to remember, we've made it through, including, heaven forbid, the COVID year, doing this for the first time on Zoom. And have faith in the process and don't look at anything in isolation. We can't look at expenses or revenue or the general fund balance, anything in isolation. It all sort of boils together. We spent a lot of time with Donna's magic spreadsheet, moving things up and down to try to find the right balance. So I wish you good luck.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Peter?
Pete Tanaka, Board of Selectmen. Last Monday, the Board of Selectmen meeting, we formed a committee to study fire department facilities. And we're gonna be asking for a member of this board to represent your board on that committee. I didn't get in time to get on your agenda, so I will make sure that I'm on your next agenda.
We'll vote on whether we can add it to the agenda tonight.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just a regular meeting, that's the only thing, is because it's a regular meeting or a special meeting.
Both.
Oh, it's both?
We could do it.
Thank you, I did.
Jim?
Thank you, Mike.
Yeah,
Your turn, Steph.
I'm gonna, I don't like doing this, but I'm gonna read from a prepared statement so I don't go astray. But I want to provide comments tonight to express my support for the Board of Education's proposed budget as presented. In addition, to request your consideration of potential changes to year one of the CIP plan as approved. Regarding the Board of Ed budget, having followed along closely over the past months to the Board of Ed's budget deliberations, I want to express my appreciation for their efforts and careful and diligent consideration of what is clearly a very challenging budget season. While I recognize their budget this year does represent a significant 8.76% increase over last year, the vast majority of this increase is due to special education outplacements that are legally required to be funded and are out of their control. Excluding this increase in the special education program budget, their proposed budget drops to a 2.07% increase. This, I believe, is far less than the increases proposed by just about every other major department here in town, and aligns with the last 4 consecutive years of Board of Ed budgets coming in at less than 2% increases year over year. I don't believe any of the department budgets in town can come close to that record of responsibility. With that in mind, please be aware that any significant cuts of the Board of Ed's budget will result in a loss of necessary staff or services. This includes the request for funding to support the hiring of a facilities director to assist in the very complicated effort of advancing the repairs at our schools in a cost-effective manner and in a way that will minimize impact to faculty and students. As a designer who works with school districts in my professional life every day to advance similar efforts, I can't possibly express any more strongly how critical that role is for the scope and scale of projects ahead of us with schools. I'd urge you to consider that need carefully and advance their budget in full tonight as presented to you. Regarding the capital improvement plan you have before you, I'd ask that you consider reducing or eliminating the $200,000 funding request from the capital reserve fund for the soon to be established emergency services building committee. It's line 31 on your CIP spreadsheet. I do not make this request lightly, as the suggestion to include funds for this committee came from myself on CIP originally. But in light of recent discussions that Pete just made mention to on the Board of Selectmen at their meeting this past Monday evening, I can no longer support it as it stands. Our first selectman, and therefore by extension the full Board of Selectmen, made it very clear on Monday that he is unable or unwilling to advance a publicly led effort towards the proposed replacement of our fire stations in town. He has shown by the entirety of the rollout of this new committee that he is simply too close to the departments and the issue personally and unable to put the taxpayer first. I therefore ask this board to be the necessary balance that is so desperately needed to ensure taxpayer dollars are being utilized efficiently and effectively towards the significant and costly endeavor. By eliminating these funds in year one of the plan, we require that the new committee to instead come before this board to request future funding. Hopefully with a comprehensive plan in place explaining how and why the funds are necessary, as well as any anticipated future funding needs. It additionally would have the added benefit of potentially reducing this year's burden on taxpayers while providing further buffer to what will be a largely depleted capital reserve fund. I therefore propose the following for your consideration. Eliminate the $200,000 allocated from Fund 4 capital reserve for the Emergency Services Building Committee. These funds can remain as additional reserve in Fund 04, projected down in case unexpected needs arise next year. I then suggest you eliminate the $31,000 annual transfer to Fund 04 for year one, which is line 3 in your spreadsheet, and zero it out. This directly reduces the cost of taxpayer next year and brings the year one spending very close to the yearly target of a 7% increase. The $110,000 in approved funding in our current year, that is for Wellington Hill Survey and Engineering at 25 Old Farms Road. It's line 30 on your spreadsheet. That has not yet been appropriated by this board, should remain that way. This board should take whatever required action is necessary to formally cancel that project. That $110,000 in unspent funding for this year can then be put towards potential use by the new Emergency Services Building Committee next year without impacting the taxpayer or decreasing the capital reserve. Additionally, Wellington 1 has somewhere between $0 and $80,000 from a prior year's budget that has not been spent towards the new station development. The Station 13 development, excuse me. This board should ask Wellington 1 for an accounting of funds and or formally request a stop to their use as soon as possible, so that any remaining funds can then also potentially be utilized in support of the new committee, if necessary or if warranted as part of a comprehensive effort. I'll just close by saying I thank you very much for consideration of the above, and I want to end by saying thank you for being willing to serve and for taking on the task of having to make many incredible, difficult decisions before you this budget season. As someone who sat there myself only last year, I very much understand how challenging the role can be. I greatly respect and appreciate you all for doing it. So thank you.
Thank you, Tim. All right, anybody else for president to speak? Okay, that one up here first. Lisa? Lisa?
Yeah,
Eaton?
hi, hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry, I don't have the best internet connection where I'm at. Lisa Eaton, 38 Timber Lane. Good evening, everybody. I'm speaking out tonight in strong support of the proposed Board of Ed budget. I think for the past couple of decades and perhaps even longer, people in town have been working really hard to secure a budget for the Board of Ed that meets both the needs of the students and also a budget that can address our dilapidated school buildings. But unfortunately, in many ways, these efforts have been repeatedly stymied by various town committees. And so I hope tonight that the board supports this budget and allows the budget to move forward to a town vote. I think it's very clear from reviewing the the presentations that Phil has put forward, and from my own personal experience with both schools, that this budget is very lean. And certainly no one could reasonably argue that the steps towards addressing our school buildings aren't critical to support at this point. So I hope that the Board of Finance advances this budget without delay. And also do recall that the town Republican Party heavily advocated for repairing our schools as opposed to replacing them, as this approach was promoted as the more cost-effective option. So therefore, I'm assuming tonight that the budget will be supported by the Board of Finance without dissent, as this is the scenario that the Republican Party called for. And I think it's also important to highlight that the proposed Board of Ed budget is unanimously supported by the Board of Ed, which of course includes participation across political parties. So in any event, I hope it moves forward, and I thank you all for your time, given all the challenges, and I very much appreciate your participation.
Thank you for your comments. Tracy?
Yes, Tracy Anderson, 151 Wellington Hill Road. I, first of all, would like to thank you all for all of your time and effort you give to our town and your roles on the Board of Finance. And second, I'd like to speak in support of your board accepting the Board of Education budget as presented by Superintendent Stevens. A lot of time and effort has gone into developing this budget to account for 4 additional outplacements, while still maintaining the same quality of education for all students, and also providing funds to maintain and repair our aging school buildings. I urge you to accept this budget and send it to referendum for the townspeople to have their vote. Thank you.
Tracy? Ma'am?
John Terraslowitz, 15 Lister Road. I just have a request. I always read the agendas for the meetings coming up, and there was nothing on this agenda that I could find. Okay, it had the Zoom information, but it didn't have the topics and what I saw online. So unless it was a second one or I missed something, I didn't see that.
There's a small blue box that says click here for PDF. If you click that, it gives you the whole thing.
Oh, so you have to go to.
You have to click the PDF button and it'll come right up.
Because I thought somebody just forgot to fill it
No.
out. I was gonna say-
It's really simple, though. It's all under new business, and it's discussions and appropriations.
Yes,
So-
okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks. We have anybody else here? Brianna Ross?
Hi there, this is Brianna Ross of Village Hill Road, the Board of Education Chair. Thank you to Jim, Lisa, and Tracy for your comments tonight about the Board of Education budget. I agree with all things said there. Just one final thing I wanted to make sure to have a chance to say. Our proposed budget has been carefully crafted and unanimously approved by our board to best support Wellington students. And I know you deal a lot with numbers, but it's our students that we are supporting. So I hope that you will remember that and think of our children as you go forward and take a look at our budget in particular, because they are not numbers. They are our people. They are our citizens. They are our legacy and our future. So please keep our children in mind as you take a look at our budget. And good luck to you all as you navigate this difficult season. Thank you.
Thank you. We have Tracy again? Okay, maybe not.
Tracy, do you still have your hand up?
Sorry, I'll take it down.
You,
Okay. I do have a letter that was emailed yesterday. It was asked to be read at the meeting. It says, dear members of the Board of Finance, as a concerned resident of Wellington, I write to you with a deep sense of responsibility and urgency regarding the upcoming appropriations meeting. It is with regret that I cannot present my concerns in person due to my recovery from surgery in the hospital. In the shadow of an unprecedented election last November, where the electorate decisively chose to root the previous administration, most likely for trying to increase taxes for a new school, it is paramount that the decisions made in the aftermath reflect the will and interests of the people. The forthcoming meeting on budget appropriations is a critical moment that demands careful consideration, especially in the face of the uncertain and challenging economic climate we are navigating. It is with this backdrop that I strongly object to any proposals for tax increases, particularly those that fund projects or expenditures not directly related to safety or essential maintenance of existing services and town obligations.
I'll put it away.
Our town, like many others, is grappling with economic challenges that have stretched the budgets of households and businesses alike. It would be both.
Yeah. I didn't think you wanted to listen, do you?
Boom.
Those are my hands are.
I think someone needs to mute that's out there in viewer land.
I'm especially concerned about the proposals being pushed forward for the allocation of taxpayer funds to two private organizations within our town. Two fire departments. While their role in our community is unquestionably important, their historical lack of cooperation and infighting raises significant questions about the efficiency and effectiveness of such funding without a prerequisite consolidation of these two organizations. Additionally, the town suddenly taking on this tax burden now is untimely. Allocating any sum, but especially the substantial sum of $11.5 million or more to these organizations is not a responsible use of taxpayer money. Furthermore, the proposal to grant these two private organizations a majority or blocking vote on the allocation of taxpayer funds is a clear mismanagement of our town's resources. The implications of such a move, particularly in light of the overwhelming mandate received in the recent elections, are deeply concerning. It suggests a neglect of the fiduciary duty owed to the taxpayers of Wellington, who expect their funds to be managed with the utmost care and responsibility. The plans currently under discussion appear to be excessive and not in line with the actual needs of our town, especially considering the minimal growth we have experienced. Such expansions must be scrutinized for their necessity and alignment with the long-term interests of our town. Given these considerations, I urge the Board of Finance to approach the appropriations process with a mindset geared towards fiscal prudence and responsibility. Increasing spending is requested and potentially imposing a tax increase of up to 3 mils, potentially the largest in our history on the residents of Wellington, is not only unjust, but could also be seen as a betrayal of the trust placed in you by our town. The town often voices frustration with the unfairness of state mandates that compel you to raise taxes. Let us not mirror this approach by imposing undue burdens on our own community. The path forward at this time should be to carry out the will of the people. No new taxes. Consider carefully prioritizing the safety, maintenance, and essential existing town services. I trust that the Board of Finance will make decisions that reflect the best interests of our town and its residents. Thank you for considering my views on this matter. Respectfully, Wellington voters, Mitch Saba, George Saba, Anne Marie Saba, Constance Saba, Joshua Saba, Rachel Saba, Glenn Cohn, Catherine Cohn, Christine Karenappa, and Jonathan Karenappa, and all. You. And do we have anybody else for present to speak? No. Okay, so now we go on to old business, which there is no business. And then new business. First, we have discussions. Second, we have appropriations, but I'd like to make a motion that we have Peter talk to us about the fire department building committee. Do I have a second for that motion? Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Do we have any no's? Abstains? Okay, so that was confirmed. So Peter?
Yeah, on Monday, the Board of Selectmen approved a committee to study the facilities, both emergent and long-term for our emergency services. It was mentioned that the fire departments had blocking, at least blocking that's been changed. They do no longer have blocking. We have 4 members of the community, 2 members of the elected bodies, and only 4 members of the fire departments represented as voting members. I think that this committee is important and that they have the funding available to get the plans that they need. I don't believe that the town can make good decisions without good data. And I think that's what the gist of this committee is to have good data and to be able to inform the town what that data is and why these changes are needed. I also have 2 members of the fire departments here if they wish to speak. The last thing is that one of the problems we've run into in past committees was selling the town the financial cost. And that's going to be a part of this committee. That's why I'm requesting that a Board of Finance member be appointed to the committee. Thank you.
Does anybody have any questions for Peter regarding that? So I just have one question. So there's 4 firefighters on it?
There's 4 firefighters on it with alternates. The reason I have that many firefighters is because that when it comes to firefighting, I think that as with schools, if you don't do that study on needs assessments and know what those needs are and have that expertise brought to the board, that it just doesn't make sense. We can build buildings, but if the building doesn't fit their needs, that's not where we need to be. And with that expertise is brought by the people that do the job.
But could I just clarify that that they will engage in the discussions, just not in the voting? So you could have as many as 6 firefighters seated on that panel regularly.
The alternates would only be seated if the firefighter's missing.
Right, they would, so they're
So
not part
there'd
of
be
the
no more than
discussion.
4 firefighters at any one time,
All right.
and 6 members of the community.
So do all 4 firefighters vote?
Yes,
All right, so was I wrong? I thought at the meeting the other night, it was decided that only 2 would be voting.
we went to that and then it changed back. At the end, when we added in more people, the motion was changed several times during the meeting.
Okay.
Amended, sorry, not changed, right?
You're in your count of the public, you're counting the Board of Finance representative and the selectman representative?
Yes, as members of the community.
Okay,
I don't believe that as an elected official, you lose your status as a member of the community.
and I don't think the firefighters do either.
No, they don't,
So,
they see
you know,
themselves as members of the
that's one of
community
those-
as well, yeah.
the reason I'm distinguishing is because there's, because Pete, because I was hoping to maximize the number of the public members
Right,
on the board. I understand that it's gone through discussion, but I still feel it's an issue especially because there's not gonna be regular coverage of the meetings. I mean, people can watch
They can
Zoom,
watch.
of course, but that's not direct coverage. And I feel like the more people you can get at the table, the more the public feels involved. And I
yeah,
still think it's out of balance as far as equity, but that's.
look at it this way, it's 4 more people than are sitting on this committee right now, so
It was good that we went up to
Right.
public, yeah,
It went up to public and they will be
and restored
on,
the T fire.
on Zoom and they will have public minutes and agendas. And another thing that was amended is that they will report to the Board of Selectmen once a month on their status and where they're going.
Right, but
So
as
that'll
we,
be
as we
more
learned
public.
during the school building committee, 3 years that they were working and doing night and weekend presentations and, you know, it was still an education gap for the public because they're not all hooked into Zoom and reading minutes by far, so.
Right,
There's quite I just caution you on that. The other question I had was, is there, are you designating in the makeup that, all the public members need to have a construction or financial
I'm
skill
not
set?
demanding that. I am asking that people who are volunteering for this committee provide us with what they feel is appropriate background so that we can make a good decision on that. And while I hear you on your discussion, Mr. McCoo, who's very interested in this committee, was on the school building committee, and I think he understands as probably better than most the necessity of communicating with the town during the process.
I agree. I think, except, what I don't see is I think the school building committee was rich because it brought in public members that really had not participated in public policy in town before, and they were smart, and they worked hard, and they stuck with it for 3 years. I mean, I think overall it was a pretty high quality, committee
Well,
that we'd be lucky to replicate, so,
yeah,
That's-
obviously,
I'm just, you know.
this town runs on volunteers.
yeah,
We need a high quality volunteer.
don't I know?
Thank you.
So how many total voting members would there be?
10.
10, okay. And then, so the other thing was brought up the other night too, are all people on that board members of the community?
All the public members are, and I believe all the fire department members from one department are, and probably
We still haven't chosen our members, so.
they haven't chosen their members, so that's a good question, without a good answer.
Okay.
When I say that's a good question, that means I don't have a good answer.
Right.
But that would be our aim.
Potentially wouldn't live in Wellington, is that what that means?
Yes.
Okay. We're having people discussing the need of the firehouse.
Right.
Don't you think they should be members of our town?
The thing is that some of the members of Chief Moore's department have a great deal of full-time experience, paid experience as well coming into town. So I don't want to completely eliminate all the members. If I crack it down, if we go from 10 to 9, one of the members has a lot of experience with firefighting, dispatching, gathering those numbers. We don't want to exclude that on 10% from 10% of the vote, so we can make it to 100%. Just because, you know, that membership. I do want as much expertise as possible.
Yeah, oh, go on.
But then isn't their focus gonna be solely on the building and not how much it's gonna cost? Cause it's not gonna affect their pocket at all.
Yeah, you would think, but they are also gonna try to make sure that the town is gonna fund this. And in the end, 100% of the funding for this department comes from town people because they're the ones that vote at the end. Like we found with the school referendum, 100% of the thought there, the vote was made by members of this community. The community has 100% of the final decision.
Is part of the mandate of this committee to potentially benchmark towns of similar size, perhaps in Connecticut?
They're looking at,
What they have for facilities and.
that would be something that I would hope that the fire department experts would bring to this.
This is a pretty small town.
This is a pretty small town, yes.
5,000, just over 5,000 people.
The problem with fire service,
It's a
as I
larger
understand
land
it,
area, I get that.
is
Yeah.
there's a lot of, the property, size makes it much different.
Can I just help
Go
you
ahead,
answer that question? Mike McCoo again, If I end up on this committee, as the first selectman said, I'm very interested in it. I'm very anxious and eager to make sure it's an honest and open planning process. And what I have been pushing forward as ideas, sharing with departments for selectmen, anyone else in town who wants to talk to me about it, is using, as was brought forward previously to the Board of Selectmen and was not was not approved in the previous administration, was to engage an outside consultant to do benchmarking and data analysis and provide those kind of answers, to look at what are the needs, where are the needs, what are the resources we have, and how best do we take the resources we have and position them to meet the needs of the community, including things like where is the fire service going, what are the needs in the future. If we're talking about building a public building, we can't just look at what do we need today. We all know lots of history of people building public buildings that are inadequate on the first day they're opened. And then they have to last for 50 or 75 years after. So that's a long answer that I hope answers your question, that yes, it would, if I'm involved and it goes the way I hope it goes, we would seek that data, we would benchmark other towns, and we would look at the fire service as an industry and then compare it to Wellington.
All right, thanks. So when do you plan on getting this committee started? And what are you shooting for a meeting?
Immediately following the next Board of Selectmen meeting, we'd like to have it start forming and start planning their path forward.
All right, so, the last thing I'm gonna ask is if you can make sure that it's even legal for you to have a committee like that with
Sure.
non-members of the community on it, who are given the right to vote.
Sure, I
Okay,
can look into that.
I appreciate that. So, what I'm gonna do now is just make a motion that we table this for now and discuss it later. I mean, it's a lot to take in and everything. So, that's my motion. Do I have a second for that?
I'll second it.
Okay, all those in favor of tabling it?
Aye.
Okay, so it's unanimous. All right, thanks, Peter.
Thank you.
All right, so next we will move on to discussions. Okay, so last time we had discussions, we got to everybody but the library, and you're here tonight to discuss that, right? Okay, so I mean, most of the questions that I personally had were regarding the staffing, because when you had sent your original budget request, that was not clear on there, and then you sent the updated one.
Right, several years ago, when I first got on the board, so 4.5 years ago, we lost our director. And in what was supposed to be an interim, we had an intern who was working there, who was working on a master's degree in library science, and someone who had been with the library for a very long time. And so we decided there were some major issues with the loss of that director. We decided to let them stay for a while. And then COVID hit and we didn't do anything. But there's been a lot of talk about going back to a director as opposed to two co-directors. The problem is that the state of Connecticut says the minimum amount that any library should pay for someone with an MLS is $56,000. And there's been a lot of talk about how the two co-directors are costing us a lot of money. They're not really. We have worked these budgets out over and over and over again in the last couple of years. So what we have done is when the library is fully staffed, it has 2 full-time people and 7 part-timers for a total of 9 employees. We removed 2 page positions. We now have on this budget 2 full-time and a lower number. We currently at work have 5 part-timers. The cost of paying that director is actually the difference between the pay for the co-director currently and the new director position is actually less than it would cost to replace those 2 page positions. The difference is about $12,000 and the 2 pages would be about $16,000 to $17,000. So going with a director is actually a little bit cheaper. We have an assistant director position according to the state, the assistant director is head of tech and patron services. So they do a very specific job within the library that is not the overall part of the director's position. So they're in charge of the internet, they're in charge of software, hardware, all that stuff. We do currently have a programmer who is part-time, but we are expanding our programs. Most of our programs right now are the young children's, but we are working on a teen, young adult area. And so we would like to start having more programs for that age group, because that's an age group that tends to be ignored by many libraries. And so we requested a little bit of an increase in, actually it's 50% increase in the hours of the programmer from 12 to 18 hours. Everything else that we put in was basically just attempting to put in cost of living increases. The minimum wage jobs went up. We were trying to give similar raises to everyone else. So the biggest change is going from 2 co-directors to a director and an assistant director and expanding the programmer's hours.
Yeah. Does anybody have any questions?
And so how many hours worked overall? Will there be more hours worked with this new configuration, regardless of who's working them?
No, not really, because the extra hours for the only person whose hours would change would be the programmer. And that would be hours that a page would normally work.
Okay.
So what do you give up by getting rid of the 2 pages?
We have worked it out and not really a lot, because we do have clerks that can cover for the pages jobs. The pages job is primarily sitting at the front desk and helping patrons or reshelving books. And the clerks that we have do have the ability to do that. They also work at the front desk. So we're not really losing a lot when we lose the pages. There were some questions about the fact that the previous director had said they needed people with a page title to get a grant, but no one can figure out what that grant is and what he was applying for, because we can't find anything that says that. And if you look at the state library annual report, they don't even list pages. They list clerks.
Thank you.
So the directors are, how many hours are the director's hours?
The co-directors right now are full-time 35 hours a week, and that would be the same for the director and the assistant director as we move on. They will be the only 2 full-time employees. They are currently the only 2 full-time employees, and that would continue.
All right, so as far as the hourly wage goes of the director, what's that?
I don't know, we put in a salary,
Uh-huh.
because as we said, the salary is 56, and we actually put in a little bit under 56. So I don't know what that comes out to be an hour.
All right, yeah, because you sent this other documentation here with it, and it had the director 35 hours at $24 per hour.
Okay, I was requested to figure that out, so I did at some point take that 55 and change and divide it by 52 weeks and divide it by how many hours they were. So if that's what it says, then that is what I worked out, but off the top of my head, I did not know what that was. And $24 an hour is actually low for a town our size. There are towns that pay less. I know
Right.
Union pays like 19, but that's Union. They are a lot smaller than we are. On the other side, Mansfield pays $50 an hour.
You don't have any knowledge whether the union person is MLS anyway, do you?
No, that is not, all of this came from the state annual report and it does not list. I
Okay,
would make the assumption
that no.
that no.
Yeah.
Anybody else, any other questions?
Oh, if you make that hourly, it's $30.80 an hour.
Okay.
But
That's
that's,
35 hours.
Yeah.
yeah,
It's 35 hours a week plus a certain number of hours for staff meetings. And I believe totals to 18 a year. An hour and a half meeting once a month for staff meetings. So everybody gets that.
Any other questions for Karen Ann?
Oh, I did want to ask you, so you had a $20,000 grant in working for you in fiscal year 23, but that went away in the current fiscal year. And do you have any grants on the horizon?
Not right now. There are some proposals in that was a tech grant to upgrade the tech in the building. Right now, there are some proposals in, but there is nothing that we've heard back on. One of the current co-directors has been very good looking for grants and trying to find things. So there are a few things out there.
Okay, and I understand you have an important library employees on the injured list, and sorry
Yes.
about your scheduling issues with that.
We do, but it is one of our full-time people. She has 2 weeks sick leave and we are hoping she recovers. It was not a good thing that happened. But the other co-director is working very hard to get people to cover for her. So it's.
All right, is that it? All right, thank you, Karen Ann.
Okay, thank you.
All right, next on the agenda, we move on to appropriations. So we have the spreadsheet, which was provided by Donna. Starting at probate and working our way down. So what we'll do.
Can I ask one question?
Sure, go ahead.
Because what you left here for us, printed out, has one different number than what was sent to us on emails.
Okay.
And that is the Board of Education number.
Yes.
And I saw that and thought it was 250,000 was what the ask was. But
The additional ask last week,
yeah,
you thought it was 250, and I believe it's 281.
okay, so what's in here now is a difference of 182,991.
Okay, all right, so here's Phil. And so I believe that it is $9,953,075 is the budget request from the Department of Education.
$9,952,075.
Yes, so is that what's on the spreadsheet, Christina?
That is what is on, yes, on what we see here in front of us, yes.
Yes.
It's just different from last week.
From what I said?
I don't know, but what Donna had sent us in the spreadsheet last week,
Yes.
or the other day, whenever that was, whenever.
Last year?
That had $9,770,000 and, yeah.
That was before the special ed placements, that was before the last minute information. And
760?
It was 9,770. 9,770,000.
I'm looking at.
Yeah, 84. I have 9770084.
That is what I have, $9,770,084 was for this news of the 2 additional outplacements.
Okay, and so the 2 additional outplacements, I had it in my head that it was, that was gonna add $250,000. But then I also had a follow-up question I was gonna ask, which is there an offset to that?
In the
Because
ECS.
on ECS or,
It's already in there, it's already factored in.
okay, so
Okay,
the
so
number
that's-
so it's 182,991, that is the additional appropriation or additional ask for the extra special ed.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Nope,
Yeah,
it doesn't make sense, but I would say the right number is 9,000,000
$953,075. The additional outplacements cost $244,991 after excess cost grant. So that after we get our money back,
Okay,
that's what the town has to pay for those two additional students.
What is it? That,
We're paying an additional $244. However, the board decided to apply $62,000 of non-lapsing fund. So that's the difference of what you're looking at.
That's
That's the
different.
180.
that makes sense. That makes sense. Okay,
so,
thank you.
and I'm sorry, the ECS number?
It's not, you're saying ECS, but
Oh.
ECS is doing the excess cost. So the excess cost grant is after our 4.5 times our per pupil expenditure is, we're responsible for that amount. So if it's $20,000 times 4.5, that amount we're responsible for, and then everything after that amount is eligible for the grant. So after applying the grant on what we know, and the grant basically is any cost that is applied to that special education, meaning transportation, specific services, the actual tuition to the outplacement facility, all of that stuff is eligible. And we calculated for what we knew, again, that day, that it was gonna cost $348,000. Once you apply the excess cost to that total amount, it brings it down to 244.
So you already applied that,
We
okay.
have already applied it, correct?
Donna,
Which is how we always do our budget.
I need to do this. I am missing this sheet. I have everything but this,
But you're up in your own.
this one here.
You don't have
You've got the
it?
updated, yeah, this one's not updated. Yeah, so that's from last, yeah. Remember when I got mine last week, so I don't have that one. Yeah, that's it. Here's the next one. That's the case. Yeah. Hey, well, you're stuck.
Let's go bring it back.
Okay, you will.
Help you file that report later.
You don't need that.
No, no, I know.
They just asked that that little block in the bottom of the screen get dismissed.
Oh, so sorry.
That way we can see if there's anyone down below there who's raising their hand or something. They go right off the screen, don't they?
There's a few of them. So how will we know? This is I know that I'm just. For future.
Okay.
They do.
All right, so on to appropriations. So what we're gonna do with is start with probate court workers way down the line. What we'll do is start with a motion to discussion. Once we go through discussion, if there is no discussion, then a motion will be made to vote yes or no on the budget that's in front of us. So we'll start with probate. Do we have a motion for discussion?
Well, we gotta go, so,
I'm wondering if we could have just a discussion in general about where we're trying to end up, because going line by line without knowing where we're going is gonna waste. I can't even imagine how we do it. So right now, we're looking at 3.57 mils if we don't make any cuts. So where are we trying to get to? Is what I'd like to know.
And I believe that's about the budget gap between, that represents about 1.8 million in a gap. So that's a lot of cutting line by line. And I don't even know if it's there.
Well, the one motion that I'm gonna make is toward the end, when we get to the Board of Education. I'm gonna suggest that we vote no on the Board of Education, that we send it back to the Board of Education. Because that budget has come way up from where it originally was. I mean, originally when Phil's first budget came up, it was below 5%, and then they added in the facilities director and the new staff member. Then they ended up adding in, they had to add in because of mandates, the students that were going to be outplaced to other communities with 2 more students. So that's really brought that budget way up from where it originally was.
Well, I would just like to comment on that. You're going, if you go back to 3.5, or when it was 5.3, or whatever that increase was, that was before, that was during their workshops. That was not through the process. They knew of some, the other things, including the big capital projects that dictate the need for a facilities manager. They knew that was coming down the pike. They had a member on the board that for personal reasons could not be there for the early workshops. They waited for that person to come back to discuss it. And that's why that change happened. They knew all along they were gonna be doing that. So I think it's dangerous to look at budgets along the process, because that was not an approved, but that was never an approved budget that was sent at that rate that was sent to us. The approved budget is what we got.
The approved budget's the one that we have, but that is still added in there.
It's, yes, but I mean, I think we need to discuss it as what the Board of Ed prepared and put before us, because that's the budget we should be talking about. We should not be sending it back.
It is the budget that we can talk about, and it's the budget that we can vote on, but we can vote yes or we can vote no for it, and if we wish, we can send it back.
Yeah, I just think I'm just kind of questioning the idea of going with a draft budget and discussing that and not going, basically turning the clock back, looking at a not yet baked, plate of cookies and saying, that's what that's our starting point, because that was not a finished process.
You have to admit, because of all the expenses that we have ahead of us, what we should be looking at is the needs of the budget and the departments and not what the wants are. So as far as like Phil's original budget there, which was, I believe, around 4.5%, maybe a little higher. I mean, that was based on what he felt that the departments needed, the Board of Education. So the Board of Education, they ended up having another meeting and everything, and they decided to throw in the other stuff that they threw in. They voted on it and they passed it. Was it needed? I don't know if it was needed. I would think if it was needed, that Phil would have originally had it in his budget that he was proposed.
Well, but, and look at what happened last week. That you're talking about wants versus needs. That's not a want.
Oh, no,
That's-
no, that's never.
And that's also, that's part of the 97% of the school budget, maybe it's even higher this year, of contractual obligations in that budget. That, if you're looking at trying to get it down to a 5% increase, I mean, that's.
I know it's gonna be over 5% because we have to allocate that money for the students that are going to be sent out of town for outplacement and for transportation as well.
And some of them were already in that budget.
Oh, yeah, they were in there.
We're discussing it. Obviously, that's gonna be one that we really need to
Mhm.
talk about, along with the others, but it's not the answer to this full picture.
I have a quick question for Phil. Phil, out of the 7 outplacements, how many are a done deal that are gonna happen? For sure, 100%.
The number that's, and this is so hard because I wish I could give you a really straight answer, but I can't. The number that's in the budget is exactly the number I know today will be outplaced next year.
Okay.
Sorry, I have to say it that way, but just for confidentiality.
Because there's always the possibility coming back before us.
They could come back, they could graduate, they could move, there's a lot of opportunity things. What I know today is, today I have 7 outplacements, and what I have budgeted for next year is 100% accurate. What I know today.
And what was the highest number you've seen in any year?
This is it, this is triple what we normally see.
And really just like students could graduate or come back to us we could also end up having more
More.
that have to go out.
100%.
That's something that has to be taken into account.
That's why I keep saying, as of today.
Yeah,
This is what I know.
But if there were even more, you'd have to come before us anyway, you know.
So, then the only other case is if we're not cutting money from there, we're going to be cutting it from other programs as well.
I have another question for Phil. Phil, was any consideration ever given? I know we've had a lot of discussions about the facility manager.
Yeah.
Was there any conversations ever had or any pricing that was gotten to go to a company that specializes in project management, like a Fuss and O'Neill or something like that, to see what they would charge to prepare these grants and potentially get these projects on track? Because that's what they do for a living.
Yeah, there was, there was kind of three scenarios that were put out. Is, one is having your facilities manager on full time, right? They do all that work for you, they're always there. The second was to buy a block of hours like you do for a retainer for an attorney. The thought was looking at, because you can see when we've gotten our proposals in, you're typically paying $150 to $175 an hour for someone to do that type of work. And we see that in the back of the proposals that we've received. So you would be able to buy a block of hours up to a certain number, and then you're done and you're stuck. And the last option was just build it into the cost of every project. So that when you have a big group of projects, such as you're doing HVAC and solar and roof at the same time, you just build a big number in for an owner's project manager that is into that entire project.
But the advantage of that, it's gonna be professional work getting done. It's gonna be done by a company that does it for a living. They're not gonna drag their feet. Sometimes we even give you the price up front with what it's gonna cost to lay down.
The only difference is the majority of that legwork is me versus facilities manager. That's a huge difference. They're the oversight, they'll pull together documents for us, but the grant writing is all done by me. The oversight is done by me, and by no means mine.
So Phil, a lot of the studies, hadn't Collier's already done that?
Done what?
The studies regarding the roof and.
So a lot of the roof work is done, so we had hired, gotten the drawings already, architectural drawings, all that stuff was done. But the coordination of doing that with solar, with an HVAC project, and the ongoing oversight, and I'm gonna give you a stupid example because it was my day today. You had a power outage today in town, right? So I'm the one running to boilers, and our boiler at Center School got cooked today, surprise, right? So we didn't have heat, and so we had to have an emergency phone call or a service call from MCOR, and I'm literally standing next to the boiler, next to Steve Folino, trying to figure out what we're doing. That was my day today, and so those things happen on a regular basis where there's oversight. And I just, from the standpoint of this town talked about fixing schools. And if you're going to do big projects, and look, I proposed to the guy over here, about doing this town-wide. I don't know that it's something that they wanna, have in their budget as well, because everybody's up. But there's a huge need in this town. The library is gonna be in the same boat, folks, in a very short amount of time, if they're not already. Because there's no one managing the buildings. Doesn't exist, and it's not Public Works. It's not Troy. I'm glad to do what I can and continue to do what I can, but the board asked for this for a very specific reason. Because the public was very outspoken that they didn't want a new school, they want to fix things, I think. And they need the oversight to do it and do it well, have that long-term plan and implement the capital improvement plan that is long-term.
I think we know what would happen in a new school, with nobody looking after it too, within a decade. Same would happen to the library.
Yeah. That was one of the things that was, it's been talked about for a while, and you mentioned, I didn't put some of those items in my budget, and I flat out said in recordings, I'd get laughed out of here if I walked in with, a budget that high in the first round. So I literally eliminate as much as I can to put forward a reasonable budget to the Board of Ed, which is what I did, and then I've been asked every year, what would you put in? And when we started having conversations about the maintenance piece, the $20,000 each, because we were gonna be drained for non-lapsing funds, makes sense, right? The facilities director has been a public conversation ongoing, so the things that are in here, the majority of them are not new.
We have to remember too, 30 years ago, when Jeff and I were students at Hall School, there was a student building or a school building committee in the town because they knew then that the town
Well, there's been
needed.
a couple.
Well, yeah, but I'm saying as far back as I remember, 30 years ago, there was a school building committee because everybody knew that the schools were gonna be an issue if they weren't already. There has been little to no work or funds allocated to actually improve or even get the buildings up to where they're supposed to be. They're not ADA compliant right now. That is not okay when you have students that can't go from one part of the building to the other. We can't keep asking Phil to do two jobs, one that he's not qualified for. Not that you don't do a good job.
Fair statement, 100%.
Let's say you're a lifetime learner.
Learn as much as
I mean, there's just, you can't ask one person to do two jobs. And honestly, where I work, if we were asking somebody to do that, they'd be coming back asking for more money. So if we don't put the money into a facilities manager, if it was me, I'd be asking for more money if I'm doing two jobs full time. And I can't even focus on either one of them full time because I have another one. It's just not reasonable to ask one person to do all that unless that's their job. I don't think we can cut that out of there.
I would really I'm sorry, did I?
I was just gonna say, like I said last time, everybody knows that every building in the town needs a facilities manager. Nobody else in town put it in their budget. The Board of Ed is the only one that had the foresight to do that. Because they know that it's a need.
I mean, the problem is the can's been kicked down the road for years.
And what's gonna happen if we do this? We're gonna continue kicking
Well,
it.
we're not gonna continue kicking it, but you know what? The thing is, the Board of Education's budget, it's outrageously high. I mean, I have to ask you, Phil, okay, from where you originally were, okay, what they added in before the new students were coming in to be outplaced. Why didn't you propose those things that they ended up proposing? Did you feel that they were needed?
So it becomes their budget, and that's the challenge. So I put forward what we identify as my administrative group, as my staff. We put forward, but once it becomes their conversation, they can put in what, they could say, hey, we want classes of 5. That's what the Board of Ed is elected to do. So the things that I put forward are the things that, like, and I'll give you the example, the staff support specialist, we've had 3 before. We have 1 right now, 1 is not filled to cover the special ed gap. And the one that they added back would put us back to where we were. That's a position that I felt like when I didn't continue it is because I said in front of people, and I was challenged on this, you've got all these positions coming back through because they're COVID grants, and now you're trying to stick them in your budget, and I did not do that. I will tell you flat out, there's $150,000 position that is not in this budget that I need. It's my curriculum director. It's a 3-year grant funded position. We spent $500,000 on the position. She's done in June. I did not put it in because I didn't think it would be supported. It's another example of like, you know, this list is longer, it's just what's in front of you. And honestly, I think without the outplacement piece, we'd probably not be having this challenging discussion. You'd probably be saying, you know what, this town's been talking about a facilities director for a while. The need is there. There's no question that this is super high. I just don't want people to think that there's things that I didn't put in and it was done by the board afterwards. They have, that's part of their budget process until they vote on it, and then it becomes their budget, and I'm just presenting.
So do you happen to remember what the dollar increase is of the budget as proposed now at this point?
Yeah, you mean the total dollar increase?
Yeah,
So at the
year over year.
876,
Yeah, I know the percentage. Do you know what the dollar?
$801,602.
Okay, and of that, how much of that is the 7 outplacements?
But we're just talking about 2 really, aren't we?
No,
It's going from, because what happened, Bruce, in the budget was we currently have 2.
Mhm.
So the 23-24 budget had 2. So I've now added probably that, almost close to that entire amount. I don't have that figure in front of me. Oh, no, I don't, because I did the other
Okay.
budget document and doesn't have those other calculated in, but it's a huge, I mean, in fact,
well, I guess what I'm wondering is the dollar year over year increase in the dollar amount, how much of that is eaten up by the 7 outplacements?
it's a huge amount. I mean,
I'm just trying to show, I think it adds a perspective of how much there is left.
I
to
think
cut after
the increase
that.
in special ed this year is over $600,000.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
It's
So, and your full increase is around 800?
correct,
Okay. So, there you go.
going from the 2, and you gotta figure, after excess cost is applied, and the average outplacement, you're at 125,000-ish per student. So we're budgeting,
Cause you already did, cutting and grabbing
All
stuff from
those
it
grants
within the
are
budget to get
already
that down, yeah,
Yep.
okay.
Jeff?
Yeah, I'm working on. I agree with I guess maybe I'd feel better personally, just from the way I think, is if it was called a project manager versus the facilities director. I don't wanna see it made permanent. And I just can't see that. And I don't think you're going that way.
correct, I agree.
There's a need for it. I know, asking people to do 2 different things. Yes, certain things are in Phil's job description, but everybody has their limitations.
Yeah.
So I'm not. Not saying.
That's, no, it's 100%.
Is this job gonna wind up in the union?
I did not put it in the union very,
Right.
I have not said I'm gonna wanna put this in an admin contract for that exact reason. And the board, I don't think would support doing that because they publicly said, and I think it was Arthur that said it, this could be a 5-year job. And we really should advertise it that way, so someone knows that when they come in, if this is not a forever, if we can get over that hump of fixing some significant things and things settle, I do think that is where it would be my responsibility, right? But when you're talking about these major projects and major overhauls, it's.
How many hours a week is the job?
It's a full-time job,
What's full-time for you?
40 hours.
Okay.
So why can't we use project manager for every phase of the job that you're going through? Like most of your large companies, they have a manager that can overlook the project that they're working on. So when you're having the roof and the HVAC done, you would have a manager there overlooking that from that contract. And then once you move on to the next phase, you have a manager for that instead of having somebody come in, to manage the whole situation, because there's gonna end up a point where you're gonna run out of projects there.
Down the years down the road? Yeah, I hope so. I hope so. I mean, if you're just talking about changing a job title, that's on the board. That's not, it's where it's the point.
I just said that just because.
Yeah, but it's just the point of what they put in and what the expectation is. It's the oversight, it's the connecting of the multiple, groups. It's the getting the RFPs and having experience.
Do you guys have a job description yet where you can share with us?
I have a draft, but it's
Okay.
basically, honestly, when I looked at the one that was off of Con College, I would copy a huge section of that. Because it was what we're looking for. It was in the same dollar range.
So with all the studies that we've done, we know what needs to be done.
Yeah, it's not about the studies
Not about the
anymore.
studies, it's.
Until we see this next one,
Well,
which is the dollar amounts, honestly.
and complying with all the crap, right? Gotta say that.
How about the legalities?
Perfect. I mean, that's.
We're on the same page.
So.
So the studies are all done. I thought studies had to be done for the solar as well.
So you need to do a determination of what you could put in for solar, what you would save if it's worthwhile. That takes someone to, again, that's just one piece. You've gotta do,
Companies come in and look at that and they do it, they don't charge for that. I've had a giant.
there's some that won't.
Yeah,
It's the installation of it.
yeah.
And it's the ongoing
Yeah, of
oversight.
course. But you know, the actual like telling you what it's gonna cost and all that, they push this stuff so hard,
Right,
I
it's-
get 3 calls a week for citing solar.
That's the minor portion. The HVAC determination, I think that's gonna be huge. The oversight of that project is gonna be huge.
But having someone come in from like a solar company to say, well, this is basically what it's going to cost isn't necessarily going to
They lay out the whole thing for you,
The
basically.
HVAC.
The HVAC different matter.
Right,
Yep.
but they have to work together.
And that's what this person is, they're the bridge between all three and keeping everybody informed. This is the next step, this is what we're doing. You're not on schedule, there's the communication out. And so those things have to happen. That's the key portion of this
There's
position.
some of these companies, like there's one out there, Fairbanks, they did some work, they'll do all those projects and put them all together and look to see what incentives are available and bundle them together to get the most
Right.
that you can. That's what these places do for a living, they're very specialized at this stuff.
How much do you pay for that though?
You pay for when they finally have a project developed.
Well, yeah, but like I'm saying, like here, obviously.
You don't pay them to put the whole thing together to say, hey, this is what we're recommending or so forth, you know, that they'll come back with this thing is gonna cost you, I'll make up a number, $2 million. And you'll see how much of that's covered by incentives from the utilities or the state or whatever. And then you turn around and in our case, we would bond someone, we'd make a capital project for it, you know. You could specify the 40% incentive or whatever it is, goes directly to the contractor or it comes to us, you know.
But I see what you're
Yeah.
saying. What's the difference in price between the group that does that
Yeah.
versus the group that works with the facilities project manager and bids it out that way?
Yeah,
You pay for it somewhere.
that's what I'm saying, like which way is,
Well, and one of the things the utility will do, they'll determine whether the measures are actually working that you put in place. They're gonna come down there before they pay the incentive. And so there's a lot of, on the line there from these companies that do that, that you're gonna actually achieve the savings they're claiming you're gonna get.
Right. And that again, I think would be
Yeah.
what a project manager would help oversee is.
And the challenge for this is, and
The school year?
as a board, no, just as a board of finance, that is a problem. But as a board of finance, you're setting that dollar amount and what Christina said in the beginning was, you know, what do we want to put to voters? That's really what your question is.
Yeah.
Where are we trying to bring this to and how are we going to get there is where you have to figure out. Cause I don't want you to be under the impression that you may not support a facilities director, you may want to call the project manager. But the board may adjust their funds if you cut them to still put that position in. It is on them, once you give them a dollar amount, to identify what they're going to adjust.
Yeah, we don't line by line. change the
Correct, so
budget,
you can make
know,
a recommendation, and you could say, hey, I want you to cut $20,000, because I know there's $20,000 in maintenance funds. You could say that number, but it's ultimately going to be their decision. And their response based upon your appropriation will be, okay, their next communication and their next document will be, okay, this is what will the impact will be. Is it going to impact the program? Is it going to be, are they going to eliminate a position if you, and I say a position, because there's a couple in there, right? Are they going to eliminate that? Are they going to choose to do something different? It's going to be on them to work within whatever number you put back to them in that appropriation.
so Donna, in your estimation, how much do we have to shave?
So 1 mil is equal to about $480,000. So if you want to get from 3.5 mils to 2.5 mils, you'll need to reduce the expenditures by $480,000.
Natalie,
So it's about 1.5 million if you wanted to take 3 mills off. Is that right?
So 3 mills would be 480,000 times 3, which is.
Yeah. Yeah, that's, but it's in change, and that's why I'm describing that as a gap, because if you factor in what a very conservative fund balance use of 500,000 and nothing else with the numbers we have, it's close to 1.8 million to get to keep the mill rate flat.
This is with interest income on the revenue side at $197,000.
And then I was gonna ask you about that, if I could, just to ask you about the revenue numbers. If those are, all like up to date, like for instance, the, you know, well, the interest earnings, is that where we are now in this fiscal year so far?
Yes.
Okay, so so by the end of this fiscal year, it will actually be greater than 200,000.
Yes.
And do you have a projection based on trending of what that would be?
My projection is 225,000 for this year, but I don't know what the interest rates are gonna be next year. I
Right,
don't know if they're gonna
Right.
stay high.
okay. And then, what about the reval impact? Is that factored into the mill rate calculator numbers?
That is not, because, yeah, it's not part of the reval, it's not part of the equation. We're basing it on the grand list as of October 1st. And we are billing taxes on that.
Okay, so the tax rates from the reval won't be in effect for all of fiscal year 24-25. That we get no revenue based on, From that.
believe so.
I would guess not, because they haven't even started the reval yet, and I'm guessing it's gonna take them at least a year to complete it, so. I
I'm
think
just
that what we
asking.
got is from the grand list, what we did is, we got 1% from the grand list, and I think that's where you're gonna be able to go for 24-25. I've never done a reval before. Of course, they only do them every 7 years, so you're the last one that did one.
Really?
Yes.
And then,
I don't remember it.
Is it actually 7 years now?
yes, because we asked for an extension.
We asked for
It used to be 10 and they went down to
COVID
4.
extensions, yeah.
What did that, yeah, what is it actually now?
I think it's 7.
That's not because of the pandemic?
No, that's because we asked for a year extension and we got it. I think it's supposed to be every 6 and we got 7 because
So we're at,
asked nicely.
going forward, we're at 6.
Yeah.
And can we tweak our tax collection rate at all, or is it even worth it? To
I'll
do
leave
that?
it at 99%.
Yeah, aren't we actually, what are we actually at?
That's a good question for the tax collector.
Okay. Do you know who our no, I'm just kidding.
I believe that the number we're using is real close to the number that's actual. Because
Really,
if
because
you're
it's
at
been
90,
like 99.7.
Yeah.
Fairly regularly. So,
Yeah.
just curious. It really wouldn't matter that much.
Yeah,
So-
that 0.7 is,
We can leave it. Just thought that might. And then as far as state aid for education and everything, is that a precise number, or will there be movement in that?
I think it's a precise number.
Thanks. Anything else I'm not asking you about?
Christine, do you have anything to offer?
No, I'm, not really.
Because
Not about right.
my understanding is what we do is we go through this list and we just vote yes or no, make suggestions from there.
Well, we make motions with the number amount. So, and the first one's very easy,
Right.
because
But there's only a couple though, so.
there's only a couple of those, but like the first one is probate, and that's just a bill we have to pay. We can't
There's a lot of easy.
But you're looking at 1.5 million, you're not gonna find it in line. I just like.
Most of them are easy.
Yeah,
So,
but are we trying to cut $1 million out
Are
of
we
this?
trying to stay flat? What's our goal here?
That's
you're
what
not,
I'm like.
you're not gonna stay flat.
Well, yeah, because.
I'd love to stay flat. It would be great. I mean, I'm a person that uses no services, but there's needs for the town. It comes down to the point where, you know, every little increase.
There has to be an increase.
There has to be, so
But
we're
the
at.
smallest we can make.
That's where it's not gonna go. I'm not gonna, you know.
Wait, I'm listening to Fred, I can't hear.
Just pontificating. All right.
What did you say, Jeff? I really can't hear because you're lateral here.
And we were just saying that, you know, we do
lateral.
have to have increases. We do have to have increases in taxes to the citizens. The mill rate's gonna have to go up, but it has to be comfortably done. We need to shave off as much as we possibly can. So, I mean, we're asking people in the community to make sacrifices. We're gonna be asking departments to make sacrifices. And the ones that are asking for the most money, you know, especially if they've got a major increase over last year, they should be able to come to the table and accept the cuts that they're going to be getting.
I do think though that the people in town expected the schools to, you know, repairs to be
Oh, yeah.
made.
We have a CIP.
Particularly after, like, you know, the new, you know, they spoke loudly on the
Yeah.
new school, but you know, the old ones that gotta fix them. Yes.
Yeah.
Not for nothing, does a facility manager have application for the fact that even once they're fixed, there's still 100-year-old buildings and 75-year-old buildings? I mean,
Do we keep rounding that number up or?
well, at 100,
75, is 52, 75?
center school's older than 52.
Really? 1952? 1952, that original tiny little part of the building. The rest of it, 1980.
Oh, we're not going from 1952 then, huh? Okay.
Well, part of the.
I know it's amazing.
71.
That just drives me
71.
crazy. I'm a stickler for dates.
Oh, well, if we're counting for renovations, then my house is only 5 years old.
No, it was an addition. Major. Anyway, whatever. You're not gonna get down to flat.
But what are we gonna get down
I don't
to?
wanna go in with 3-point-something mils either, so, you know, is it 2? Is it?
Well, where are you getting? Either you don't pay, you're not gonna pay the roads, or we're gonna.
We have to provide the services that people want.
Yeah, you're only getting like numbers that are gonna move the needle out of the bigger budget. You're not gonna get them out of like,
That's
you know,
also-
so, you know, economic development or, you know, just a.
I think it's heavy lifting to get it down to a 2 mil increase myself, or a 2 point something.
I do too. I've been looking.
I mean,
a lot.
you know, what we've done is focused on the end game, which you should, when you're cutting, you should figure it out. And so we're having that philosophical discussion right now. We have to get out of this idea that we can still do everything and handle the capital projects and stuff that are ahead of us and fix the schools, which I think everyone was in agreement was, you know, going to be the, you know, the fallback or the necessary thing for today. It's not something that we can't hold to a 1 mil increase limit like we've tried to, you know, the last several years.
Donna, what's the actual increase?
It's 3 point, oh, I'm sorry. go ahead.
3.57
7 mils.
And for reference, so 3.57 mils means that on a house that's worth, let's say 300,000.
Which a lot of them are in town, and many are worth a lot more.
Well,
No, but it's a percent of it they tax you on.
That's actually not accurate. We did this as part of the school building committee. The average house was like, it was in the low twos, I think.
Yeah.
Between 220 and 240.
Yeah.
It was similar.
Yeah.
It was surprising.
Yeah, we were all surprised.
Well-
That's at
Especially
70,
with the more.
Even- I get you.
that's at 70% though.
Correct.
Yes, but that's what you're gonna pay
That's what you're
taxes
gonna
on,
pay taxes on.
right?
Alright, so what would it be?
Well, on a $200,000 house,
Okay.
easy math, it's just double this number at the bottom, increase per, it's $357,000 per mil, so $714
And,
on a $200,000 house.
right, and then for, just from my point of view, pretty soon you're paying $5,000 a year for a shit asshole house. Sorry.
So what's the answer?
I know, I know, I'm just giving you my 10 cents worth of, you know what.
Something happy. Some people say,
What did he say?
it's only $750, no big deal to me, but then there's other people, $750 a lot of money too, so we gotta consider those people a little bit too.
Well, that's,
And-
yeah,
and-
we have to fix, we gotta fix this, that's the.
Another thing to think about, I've said this at many meetings, but if we had a $3 million bond in here, we would, and this is what went out to referendum, the numbers that we were looking at in terms of the taxes, that's because there would be $3 million in this extra that we would be paying, multiple mills on. I don't know, I didn't do the math on what that is. People said no to that. Did they say yes to repairs? We don't know until we go out and try. But we think that's what they said. But it's not free, that's the thing.
Yeah.
It's not cost neutral. And I think that was made clear during the referendum. So,
And if you play that out, what are we gonna do if not repair them? I mean, are we going to wait until there's deterioration to the degree that the
Well,
state comes in?
No, I don't
you
think
know?
there's any discussion about not repairing the schools. I mean, I believe we are all in favor of repairing the schools.
Okay. What,
A lot of that repairing the school budget is also in CIP instead of in the Board of Ed budgets. That reflects in the town government budget.
the other thing, the other point I want to make about the facilities person or project manager, whatever it becomes, it's a relatively affordable amount. And it's, in fact, I think Walt said that it's probably underrepresented a little bit, but it's, I gotta think a guy worth his salt or a woman worth her salt doing that job would, recoup grant money and, economies from, wise, industry knowledge, to make that sum back and then some. I feel like it's really important, and I think the coordinating of it is crucial. Because this is just we're talking about the roofs and the solar and the HVAC, but that's just that's step one,
So let's take that off the table a minute. What are we targeting as a board for the number that we're trying to get?
If you
If we
wanted to
don't know
take
where we're
it,
going, how are we gonna get there?
I can tell you, just for
Yeah.
just for a factoid in the discussion, it's $757,000 to get it down to 2 mills. That's how much we'd have to cut.
So we have to take 700, so how would we get it down to 2.5?
Okay, just a minute. Yeah.
We can make her do that.
We should.
Forty's 1 mil, so if you wanna go up half a mil, you're going up to 40.
Yes, okay.
Yeah,
It's four.
yeah, that's good.
We got an educator here. So instead of.
So what, if the blood thin out, like, even the islands, or
what?
get your coat on?
Yeah.
I'm freezing.
That you spend too much time down south.
Maybe.
Already work.
It's not cold in here?
No.
Okay.
That's gonna be.
My hands are like frozen, I think, because I drank that at all.
It's not occurring. Yeah,
Wanna have Donna plug
sorry.
it? Steph, you wanna have Donna just plug it in?
What?
You wanna just have Donna? Yeah, just, you got the magic spreadsheet open.
Yeah. You wanna plug it in, Donna?
If they're
I just wanna
achieving
be
two
sure.
point five mils, what would that mean cutting out of? Out of our 3.57 actual here? Christina, when you figured what it would cost on a $200,000 house, was that at 3.57 or?
That was, yeah, 3.5, 350.
So it'd be about 500,000, 516,000 we'd have to cut, so it takes about 250,000.
I don't think we do nothing and say 3.57 is good.
Get it down to 3.
I would need 3.
All right, we'll try for it. See if we
I
can get
can
below
believe
that.
that if we can do it.
All right.
What is that? That's what, 240?
That would actually, yes.
What's
A
240?
240.
You guys do that.
It's just, that's
It's
240.
a hair over 240.
To get it to 3.
Okay.
Maybe about 250.
Mhm.
Can I ask Donna one more question? Because I looked at all these numbers. And the one thing that I wasn't sure about was the ambulance grant. Because where did, the number that we have in here, the 606, 313, does that include how much offset from Fund 17? Is that the 40 or?
I think it's the 20.
The 20,
Okay.
okay,
Okay,
that's where we ended up.
The CIP approved it for 10,
Right,
but they have it in their budget for 20.
right, so where's that other 10?
Good question.
Okay.
What are you talking about in the ambulance budget?
So the ambulance, the number that's in here is the number that was presented by the fire department, who had $20,000 being offset through the CIP. So it was reduced by $20,000 from what their original ask was. CIP only approved 10,000 in their budget, so there's 10,000 in the ether. So, which means we probably should add $10,000 to this number that's on here. That makes it worse.
Can I ask a procedural question?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I believe it would not be in the purview of CIP to decide that $10,000 is going towards their operating budget, unless I'm misunderstanding you. In which case, this board needs to approve the entire 20. If you're gonna do 20. It would only be the Board of Finance, the way the contract is written with the fire departments. It would be the Board of Finance's job to determine any allocations from Fund 17, even the capital ones.
Right.
CIP can put it forward in a plan. Board of Finance has to approve it,
Right,
but CIP should not be putting forward a transfer from Fund 17 into operating. So it's exclusively this board and then the taxpayers. Am I right? That's right, Alex, based on the concept, right? You're correct. Just for clarity.
But
yeah.
I just need to follow what number you're talking about, because are you talking about the bunker gear, or are you talking about the offset?
I'm talking about the operating budget number as presented to us on the spreadsheet is $606,313. So that includes a $20,000 offset.
Yeah, yeah, that,
And then the other number that was confusing was the amount for that union would be paying. Because-
We were hoping they were
Yeah.
coming off the ARPA funding, and they did.
but you
Right.
didn't, when you didn't like send it back to us, it was placed in the placeholders in there as 15.
And I do
and then you
apologize
tell us
for that,
it's only
because usually
5.
we don't put that in there. Usually
Yeah.
we don't fill that in.
Right, and I think it's probably better if you don't plug in
I
Fund
agree with you.
17 too, but. You do have your tower offset in there,
Yes.
that's part of that, but that means we need to add that 20,000 back in.
Also, the number on here for the union offset is wrong.
Right,
Right.
That's what we're talking about.
yeah. So what should that number be, Donna?
I mean, we can.
We're going in the wrong direction,
Yeah,
but it's not good.
So what is the correct number for me?
Yeah, yeah.
5,000?
yeah.
Yeah.
And so-
So it's 313.
Yeah.
That's, three from the bottom.
Two,
And transfer.
zero, four, four. Is, or should we say we're gonna? Well, I guess that should be part of the deliberation, what we take out of Fund 17, if anything. But if you don't take anything, it should be 626, right?
Correct, 626.
And then, well, actually, then it's gotta be more than that because,
636.
yeah,
Yeah. If you don't take anything from Fund 17, you don't take.
636 because of the union.
Correct.
Over, yeah, 636.
Okay.
Got any other help, Christina?
Well, I do have a question for Pete too, because the salary increases, and I know you can't really, talk too much because you're in negotiations about them, but we don't have them in the budget, and how likely is it that we would have to add money to address that? They are, okay.
But when you're asking how likely, are you talking about projecting outcome, or you? Because we probably shouldn't
Right,
go too far into that.
I just wanna make sure that we're not forgetting that.
We haven't forgotten it. We may be a little low, but we haven't gotten to negotiations yet, and
Right,
so
okay,
it's in the ballpark.
okay.
And that would have gone the wrong way too.
Yeah, no, I know, that's what,
Stop finding things going the wrong way, go the right way.
okay. I think that's, it. I think that's all those things I wasn't sure about.
All right.
So is that a good target? Or is that what we're starting with? That's what, is that what we're doing?
Trying to knock up what, 500,000?
No, 274, 275,000. Or to get it to 3. Oh, was it less? Okay, maybe I was wrong. Okay.
It's going to stay.
Where's that number? Times, I'm doing a 482, 182. I get 274.8. So that's 275, so rounding up.
May I ask a question real quick for Wellington Hill? Did the gear get added on to the budget?
Yeah, we gotta sort that out because here's the question. It was, in fact, it was taken out of CIP. So,
Right,
and
but-
you had it in both places.
We had it in both. Chief Snyder sent Mr. Waller an email last week requesting that it was added after it was taken out of CIP.
And that number, that half number had gone up a little, right?
It's 22,001.
I had 22.1, I thought.
22,000.
Is that right?
So if I did the math correct, their total should be 171,660 for Wellington Hill. With that 22,000 added in,
Oh, you mean the bottom line?
their bottom line, yes.
But the question I have is there another way to go with that? Like, is there? Should we just deal with that as it is, or is there potential in the ARPA give back or return money that could handle that? Miss ARPA.
Not in a timely way.
And we were also looking at moving some of that money to the non-spent ARPA money to the senior center, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's only like 15 or 16,000.
Yeah.
And there is money that needs to be allocated, but we have a process that we have to follow,
Yes.
and we have closed it for any new projects. Because we have a couple of projects on deck. If the money becomes available, we can, so if we wanted to open it back up for some of these other things, we could, but you have to go through a public hearing process, and it's a whole thing. One other thought was maybe we could just disband that committee and have the Board of Finance just deal with the rest of the money. But I'm not sure you could do that legally because of the way the ordinance is written.
You just give it back, right?
Oh, if we don't spend it?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, we'll definitely figure out how to spend it.
Oh, I know, but
But,
I'm saying to throw it into the board, if
yeah,
you disband that, then you're basically,
This is saying this number goes up.
I don't know.
well, it's,
Yeah.
that committee was put in place to manage the process and the funds. And it just, it's, at this point, we've done 95% of that work. And so it's just, it's very cumbersome at this point to do the very end part. But that's not really a discussion.
Just one quick question from my own knowledge. Was it like mandated within ARPA money that would have
Thank you.
this committee, or
No.
was that a town decision?
That was a town decision.
Okay, so really, legally, we could just have.
Yeah, but disbanding a committee that came into effect through town meeting, you're gonna have to, you're gonna have to take it back to town meeting to disband it.
Right.
And then there's gotta be a dismantling process, I'm sure, that I'm not sure how it would work.
Yeah.
That's one question though. How is it like an imminent, first of all, is the standard where it's 10 years, click, throw it away? Is that in effect now,
That is in effect,
right now?
right now.
And do you have, gears that are sets that, in other words, do you need that like immediately, or could we go back to ARP to get the money for it?
I'll speak for Willington Hill, we're right on the bubble on stock right now. And so it's a matter of if we lose a set to damage or contamination, or if we have juniors that move up to full firefighters, then we're required to equip them.
Okay.
So we're on the bubble right now. It's just too hard to predict, as we discussed during the previous budget discussions, it's too hard to predict exactly what happens over 14 months from now, or
Okay.
15 months from now, to see what will happen during that time. And you have the challenge also where, someone may retire or, move out of town or whatever. But if they're a vastly different body shape, size than the next person who needs it, you can't equip them with that. gear
Right, I
anyway.
understand it's got that.
So it holds off a little while till it gets reused with the right person, right fit.
I have two quick ones.
But
So
you guys,
we're really close. We could probably make it, as long as we had some in an emergency that if I have to order, I can at least get a set. What I did want to clarify is both departments should be 22.8. We're looking for the same dollar figure. So the 21, it didn't need to go up 20, whatever number I gave you, it just needs to be the total of 22.8 in that line. item.
22.8, oh, so
Right,
it's
so-
another 500, or is
Well,
that?
Well, let me just help clarify. In the initial operating budget request, I think there was $6,000.
So it
For
just needs
gear.
to go up to the 22.8.
Yeah, we don't have to add the whole 22 something with CIP in, because there's some money in the operating budget.
It's just like 16,000.
16.8.
Correct. The adjustment is 16,000. Yes, thank you.
So we add 16,000 to Wellington Hills,
That's what would
149.
cover for
Yeah.
what was removed
Okay.
from CIP.
right? Okay,
16,000.
now
Yeah.
we're still going in our direction. But Wellington ones was included, so we don't have to add
We
16.
don't have to adjust that one.
Okay, Yeah, that's a transfer.
In fact, do you have anything to get back? If it's going down?
So I,
Sorry to be typing things.
No, but, and if you want me to talk about my budget really quick, we're okay going back to the numbers that we had for the vehicle apparatus for last year for repairs. The only concern is we know that there's some big things coming up with like the squad. That's why we did increase it, but if it has to go back with the understanding that if something major happens, we're gonna come back to board of finance.
So what's that figure?
Off the top of my head, I don't know.
Oh,
I can figure it out really quick if you like.
you could work on that if you, you know. Other stuff.
It's only 3,000, it's not as much as it is.
What?
3,000.
Um. Oh, that come off their, maintenance, they can.
Common force, the 3,000 is going up.
Not a lot, but it's the
Yeah.
first one in the right direction.
Yeah.
You would suggest that. You would suggest that.
So, do we go toward finding 275,000? Is that what we're gonna try to do now?
That's what I would like to do. You know, I don't know how the rest of the board feels, but I think we should make some attempt to come down off 3.5 set.
I think it's possible.
You know, some of the
I think
big
it's.
budgets, public works, you know, was there anything in there
Is the stand still there?
Yeah, I mean,
You can take the stand out.
what was that worth?
I think it's something like
6,000.
6,000, 9,000, something like
it
that.
was 6.
My dyslexia got me, flips numbers.
Okay, do we want to start with that? Because
What about this,
I've got some suggestions.
salt over there?
Salt, we're, I think salt number is necessary. I think that the salt number, it buys us 1 load of salt, so if we have another year like this year, next year, we're good. But if we get a big year, we're gonna have to come back for salt. The one you might wanna look at is asphalt. The reason the asphalt number's where it's at is because that's the number that the town did a study last year for $40,000 saying, this is how much asphalt you should be putting down. So we tried to come up to that, which is $150,000 more than last year. Troy would really like to have that asphalt, but if we gotta take a hit there, we gotta take a hit there. I wouldn't.
Well, is that all really?
I wouldn't give the whole 150, I would like to keep at least 75 of that, so $75,000 increase instead of $150,000 increase.
Yeah, he lumped it all together.
Yeah.
So was asphalt,
He lumped it all together and then added 150. So,
yeah,
Yeah,
but that way he doesn't have to guess the percentages out ahead of time. So if he's buying chip seal, he'll use asphalt money.
Okay.
If he's buying, crack seal, he'll use asphalt money.
I would suggest that we consider 20,000 in out of salt. It leaves them 4,000 because of the spending trend that they have there. And given that this is, I mean, we even looking at, what the use is this year. I mean, what the winter's been like this year.
68 sand, 20 salt, 71 asphalt, 101,
Yeah, I talked to-
what did you say, asphalt?
75K.
Yeah, I talked to
Because they
Troy,
upped it
he can
150.
give up the sand because
Alright.
we didn't use as much this year as we thought. But we did use the salt, and I know it cost me $150,000 a load because I just signed off the ticket for one load.
Well-
75 for the asphalt, the salt is 20. That brings it to 106K out for sand.
Right.
75K out for asphalt, 20K.
Right.
So,
Something I'm good. Thank you.
Busy trying looking at
math. No, I know, and again,
We got almost 200 grand for the so.
Yeah, he's got 225 grand in there.
Was.
Let's see.
Well,
oh, what?
we got almost 200 grand if you just abolish stone. But you don't even have to go, because
You're Joe Dowling in town. I gotta abstain from that one, sorry.
anarchy. Okay, I'm good with that.
What page is that on?
We still have, next week as a, yeah, okay,
Yeah.
only because,
This week I
I
have too
know
much.
it's gonna need it.
Yeah.
I personally been to one of these where we've gone to midnight, and that's not gonna happen.
Yeah. Okay, so. Let's see, on the asphalt, yeah, he's got. He's for asphalt, he's got 325,000 budgeted. And that's up 170,000.
But then you combine them all. and-
Yeah, he did combine them all, yeah. So, let's see. Okay, so 70.
I'm giving up money, come on. Give away.
Well, we're working on it. How much did you give it?
He lets like some in there. Yeah. Because altogether, there's 500,000
Okay.
in all those,
Yeah, because there's still 150 in the chip seal.
Yeah.
yeah.
And there's still
25 in the
Yeah.
crack.
25 in the crack.
So that's why I had 100,000 coming off in that, because
Yeah.
I know it slows things down, but one of the things that I think is important with this is we all agree that we have tons of roads that they need work, and they need work, and we spent 40,000 on software to analyze how we do that. We've never had a presentation of the results of the study. We've never seen a plan that says 10 years, here's what we're gonna do. These are the roads for the first year, these are for the second year. I feel like we kind of need, I think this board, and the selectmen too, as well, and the public needs to know where we're going, where the road's gonna take us on spending for paving, because if we're really gonna tackle it, I would like to see an articulated plan, because this is gonna grow into a lot of money. And we haven't seen that, and I know that it's sort of saying, slow it down for the first year, but I feel like this is a budget year where we're gonna have to slow it down for the first year. And that's
Agreed.
why.
I'm gonna come back for that money at some point. I'm just letting you know.
I would be surprised if you didn't, Pete.
Can we trim money from a tree removal?
No, that I really would suggest not doing that. We've had two major insect infestations. And even with
Yeah.
the major, what do they call it, vegetation, something or other by Eversource, we are still hurting on trees. They're coming down at a phenomenal rate. We've essentially lost every ash tree and about half the oak trees.
Well, there's dead ones from the gypsy moths too, still sitting
The
there.
gypsy moths got the oaks and the
Yeah.
emerald ash borer got the ashes and it's bad out there right now and the way we go about getting those taken down by the contractors. Troy really works hard at making sure that we maximize our free cutting dollars. That's not a good place to cut.
I just kind of want to, if it's okay, I know, are you moving on to trees? Because I kind of wanted to talk about salt a little bit. So salt, you know, was in the last full fiscal year we have with a budget for 125 grand, we spent 113 grand. Then it was budgeted up to 140 grand for this year. We spent nothing in that. I mean, nothing that shows yet.
We spent 150.
Okay,
I know we
that,
spent 150 because I signed off on it 2 weeks ago.
on salt,
Salt,
okay,
it costs $150,000 a load.
it's not in the sheet yet. And then, but then it's going up to 160. That's why I thought, you know,
Yeah,
that's-
I'm.
and not
But
for nothing, but we,
150 a load, that's 150 this year. I think 160 would be reasonable for what it may go up to next year for a load.
right, but you're getting it at the end of the season, so. So, you know, you could
Yeah.
call that next year's load, is what I'm seeing, that's how I see it. I mean,
All right.
last night notwithstanding, and I didn't see any trucks had to go out. You know, I think we're pretty much at the end of the season.
Well, knock on wood.
I said, yeah.
Yes, I know,
yelled
I
at
know,
Granite
but still.
for saying that it's gonna snow again, so I won't say it's gonna snow again.
You guys know what I'm saying, you know, I think we can withstand it given how late we're ordering it though. And not for nothing, but they got training at UConn. UConn is this course that they offer to towns. And and from what Troy said, all our public works people went to it. It's to minimize the amount of salt because as you know, it goes into all of our private wells and runoff and damages the water quality. Not all of it, I'm just saying there's a harm of that.
Right,
So-
there is, and I
so
fought
they-
against that because but that's a state mandate for.
I
to go to
understand.
More salt and less sand.
But UConn is like, you know, offering this program and they've done it with their own budgets and drastically cut into their salt supply needs because to reduce the amount of salt used, it is the best de-icer, so, you know,
What they replace it with?
they're not replacing it. The way that they're doing and the way they're applying it and how they apply it and how they, you know, the technique, it's more about technique, but they've reduced the amount they need to use and then thereby their costs and they do, you know, that's the whole campus that they do. And plus they open the course up to municipal public works folks and Troy says ours have been trained. So my feeling is rather than the amount going up in the future, we should see a reduction if that technique is really as good as Bill. I'm just saying cut it 20,000. And then if there's, you know. I mean.
What do you think,
and,
guy?
you know,
20K?
No, I. You're the elected board on that, so I don't think it's a good idea, but I just, as long as we can come back to if we have an emergency next year, because this was a very good snow year for us, as was last year. And I'm just hoping that trend continues.
I don't
Let's
think
go
anybody here would say
global
no.
warming.
right,
Like if we need it.
right, but I'm saying we're starting with a full boat of salt, right?
Yeah, I don't think it's full right now, but, and even though it's next year, it will be next January or February, which is well within the 24-25 year budget year that you're looking at, that we're gonna be ordering that. That's what I'm saying.
Okay,
I mean, I think that we should touch on this. I personally do, part of it is some of what you've talked about that study with UConn. I know a lot of people that are affected by the well thing in Mansfield and why UConn started doing it. I'm not saying we've had a lot of mild winters. Yes, we could have a really bad one next one, but the trend is that it is a little bit warmer here. We're not getting as much of the storms. And I say we predict what we can now, because we can't predict that. We really can't. But the trend is saying that we're going to probably have a little bit more mild winters.
They're gonna get it anyway if they need it.
I mean,
Yeah.
exactly, and, you know, I mean, yeah, we had snow on Mother's Day, like I was saying, 2020, but I think that, you know, people can figure out a little safer way to drive, and not saying that we shouldn't salt the roads.
Or which.
No, I'm not saying that.
I'm talking about the people driving.
Oh, yeah. But, you know, I mean, I think if we're trying to eliminate something out of the budget, I mean.
Okay, so where are we at with public works? We said 6K sand, 20,000 salt, 75K asphalt, I believe, Peter.
We're actually,
We're
we're
at that.
Can
we're
we cut a
pushing
little
the
more
100.
out? Take a little more salt off.
No, I'd say $100 asphalt.
Yeah. Because it's
So 126.
500,000 altogether, so the three products together.
paid.
Yeah, but there's a $500,000 budget, so. On that, on the roads alone. What do we wanna do on that?
Can I make a suggestion to you?
Sure,
It's a little unique, but I think the Board of Ed gets put in this position each year, whereas the town doesn't. It's really hard, and I'm gonna say for Peter, I think at this point, just being new. You go line by there for that particular budget, for the selectmen budget. And without having those department heads here or having conversations, if you just gave a number to him, he could then probably have an easier time going back, and I think this is anybody. If he had a number, he could then go back to his department heads and have conversations and make decisions based on those department heads to meet that number. Instead of saying 6,000 sand, 20,000 salt, whatever it was, roads, he may put priorities someplace else to try and meet the need that his folks are saying. We do that on the Board of Ed side each year, right? So you don't go line by line through our budget. You'll say, we're gonna cut $100,000. And then the board identifies what that looks like, and then they approve a budget, and what we share with Donna would be that number. It may be easier for you just because of where the increase is, to look at across the board, doing a particular percentage to every single budget. And let the budget owners go back to their boards, to their committees, to their firehouses. And say, how are we going to, we have to work with it in the summer now. This is where the Board of Finance is putting us. What would that look like? And that might be how you get to your dollar amount that you're trying to chip away at, which is really hard to do, line by line. And he's kind of in the hot seat because he's got to make a determination on a specific line. If you said 1%, you know, I think the total, and I'm just gonna give you the example that I'm writing down here. Donna's total budget that you have, I think, is 22 million, right? So you can't take a percentage off the EO Smith because it's not gonna happen. So if you remove that, I think it's around 17,300,000. If you said everybody loses 1% off their budget, it hurts the Board of Ed, but it hurts everybody equally across by 8%. If you have a small budget, you still lose 1%. That money then adds up to meet your dollar amount. If it's 2%, you're actually under 3 mils, I think. Yeah. So if you're trying to meet your number, I guess my point is what that would allow is it would allow the people, I'll say the leadership team on the town side to go back to their group and say, okay, we're gonna be cut 2%. What's that going to look like? And he can do that within his entire budget. Whether or not you agree with that because you wanna cut salt or you wanna cut sand, it's just a different way to look at it. Because it's the perspective that the Board of Ed deals with every time it does have a cut, if that makes sense.
I think, one of the reasons that we're going through the process we are is because it intellectually, it doesn't make sense to us, it's gonna be hard to make sense. I don't know, I mean, obviously, he can take those cuts and do it, yeah, you know, however. But at least I'm gonna speak for myself on this, but I just, I feel like if you don't go through the process of saying, where would I cut this budget? And give some tips about where you see some over budgeting maybe, then, then you're, you know, you're just kind of giving a cut without really knowing if you're even in the ballpark for cutting it. That's why I'm going through the process. Should it, does it need to be line by line here? I don't know. It seems like people are comfortable knowing what we're asking. And then, you know, I don't know, I'm just telling you what my
I'm just
philosophy
trying to
is.
get
I
to
get,
that
I know what
number
you're saying.
and not have him have to make a decision on a line, because once you decide on a line, it's out of his hands, right?
No, they can't decide on a line.
We don't.
Yeah,
We
we
can't
can
decide
I
on-
saw you at line.
No, we do the whole, it's the whole transfer out, I mean, it's the whole,
That's the whole
Like-
department.
yeah,
Gotcha. Okay.
right.
So you got 100?
It's gonna be 100. I mean, that's the point. I'm not gonna offer up $100,000.
Why don't you not? Yeah.
The board, listen, do I think that you're, the Board of Ed is gonna walk out of here unscathed? I would love to think so, but I don't think that's the case where you're at, right? With your discussion, so I'm not gonna tell you what it's going to be. The Board of Ed would identify what that is. But if you say, hey, take 1% on your budget, that's what they're gonna have to do. Just a different, I get your point, Steph, I just
Yeah.
trying to get to that dollar amount.
I think that the only, like, with the Board of Ed works slightly different than the town, because you're looking at, once they lump your entire budget together, they look at my budget in pieces, and, the way you justify your final number is by showing them all the lines, but then they just go, boom, they can't go cut this because you can do that all overall. I got different departments that I'm working with, and some of the departments I can't cut. There's line items in there that cannot be cut. For instance, my health insurance line,
Right.
it, what we're paying to the town of Bolton for our land use manager, what we're paying the town of Bolton for our assessor. I can't cut those. Those are contractual. I got certain contractual lines that I cannot cut. So if you say cut 1% from your budget, that means I'm actually cutting 50% from another budget, you know, one of the lines. I can't.
So that assessor figure, is that new figure in here that you got the other day?
I believe that line's in there, but, so there's some anomalies in that contract that they sent us that I'm working out with the, business office, the lawyer, and the town of Bolton, who I haven't gotten hold of yet. So what I'm asking on that is that I may come back to with a better number for you on that final meeting that you have, where you have the town hearing, followed immediately by a budget meeting, and I may be able to adjust that number at that time, hoping to have it solved by then.
Cause I thought you got a new figure the other day, because this sheet I have is from a couple of weeks ago. And it shows the 32.9%.
That's the current number we have.
Okay, good.
The 162, okay.
Yeah, whatever I just remember the 31% increase in that.
So you know 149.
So what, I'm sorry, where's that?
Yeah, well, I don't think
Oh,
there's much more.
So the 162 is compared with what? What was it before? I mean, is it down, did you say?
It was.
The assessor,
Yeah,
34.
the assessor line is up 31%.
okay, so it's still the same.
Yeah, no, it's,
It
But-
was-
Yeah, no, but I mean, in the appropriation
in the
list.
appropriation, it's still the same until I can figure it, until I can work it out. I've gotta go with the number that
it's prudent to use the number that it may be instead of the number that I hope it'll be. It's kind of like when we did the.
Maybe
But
it
maybe,
would,
maybe it puts a little,
yeah, it could be
Helps
helpful in
your
your
negotiation.
negotiation.
Oh, it's very,
If
I
we
don't
say,
know.
we don't have $10,000 of
Right,
that.
Yeah.
I got some, I plan on telling them that, but there's also some other negotiation leverage that I may or may not have.
it just feel,
I
because, you
just
know, we're
don't feel
not,
comfortable discussing at a public meeting.
okay.
Yeah, I don't think you should, you can show your hand here.
Right,
But
right.
we're not alone in struggling with our budgets this year. There's so many towns that are having worse problems, actually.
God,
And
I can't imagine.
and it, yeah, but you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So I can't imagine that the, you know, the people you're negotiating with don't realize that we're gonna, you know, that a 31% increase is untenable in a year, in this year especially.
yes,
So,
that's one of my leverages and.
I mean, it doesn't sound like,
Public works.
what's that?
Public works.
Did we decide to do the 100,000?
Nothing else.
We were at 126, that's public works, so that's my math.
Take that.
Okay,
We're at 126, 6K for sand, 100 for asphalt, 20 for salt.
I think $100,000 for asphalt.
I had one question about, public works before we completely move on. The bulk waste disposal. They budgeted for 80. They're asking for 80. In the last full year, they spent 60. And they're on track to spend 60 this year. Do we really have to give them the whole?
Well, the 60s year to date.
No, that, the 23 expended. 23 was 60,394. Unless I'm reading this wrong.
yeah, I could see taking that down.
Prices go up, though, like what are they getting charged now?
I mean, they're
Well,
on
see,
track
they-
right now. So
They've
far
got,
this
yeah,
year,
they were
they've spent
80,000
32.
full year and they spent 60 in 23. Partial year, they're tracking to spend 60 or around 60. It's still at 80, yeah, 64, about 60. And then they're carrying over an 80,000 budget request, so I think taking that down 15,000 makes sense. I know Pete's worried about the legislation on the table, but I think it's highly unlikely that the State House, if it does pass, would say, you gotta put this into effect in 2 months. And if they do, I mean, I don't think that's normally how they do something like that, that drastically changes the way of doing both ways, but I don't know.
Well, why not remove 20,000?
Because
It looks
I
like
think
it's
that's
trending to
it's
65,000.
yeah, it's trending to 65 this year.
Yeah. Right, yes.
I also believe that the waste company is just sold and prices are going up.
That's Casella.
It went,
They did go up in price, we're seeing
Yeah.
it too.
yeah, because you live right next door to them.
Yeah, we use,
Yeah. The Vivo sold out and it's
yeah.
new companies that's, prices are going up.
Do you know about what percentage? of-
I don't, I think that was Troy's guess on what it was to cover. It was
Yeah, you
the,
wait till you see it, and then we get.
Yeah, again, I mean, that's something that if we have to do, we have to do it, but why? I think that can be cut right now and then revisit it if we need to. Find it somewhere else.
Right.
So we got 1/3 for it.
So are we cutting that one, 15 or 10?
15.
I'd say take 15 off.
Yeah.
And then they still have,
Bulk waste.
that would.
no,
leave it-
what's the total that you've taken off of Public Works?
126,000.
And what were you?
No, it's more than
If we,
Plus
if we.
plus
did
15, Donna.
For the transfer station.
For the transfer station, yes, you're right.
For,
It's a different I mean, it's a
Yeah,
different
two different lines.
appropriation, yeah. It's in a different category.
so that's
141,
141 total from Public Works.
well, if you count the transfer station too, which is a separate cost center,
Yeah.
yeah.
All right.
So one.
Yeah, And what was the number you needed to come down to get to 3? Do something?
275.
So you've taken
And we got
essentially half of it
134 to
out of
go.
Public Works?
Well, they have one of the biggest budgets. One of the biggest non-contractual budgets.
Second biggest.
One of.
Right.
I said one
I'm
of.
just saying.
We haven't gotten all through it.
Just do it when I ask any session out of the school budget. No, I'm just, who wants to be the bad guy?
Is
I
there,
will, I have no shame.
is there anywhere else
Yeah.
we can look before we go to that? 'Cause I think everybody has agreed that
I
the
think
schools
there's others.
need.
Yeah, there's a few other things.
yeah.
I think we can give other things.
Let me tell you an easy one.
Okay.
6,000 from the treasurer, because that's what the fees, he thinks the fees could be, maybe would be, isn't sure they would be. We have 15,000 in contingency that, for finance contingency, we could use if that were to come true. So I don't think we should assume it's coming true and put that money there and have it go unspent.
Alright.
So minus 6,000 for there.
Agreed.
Another one that I don't know if this is easy or not, economic development, the $23,000. We don't have an active board as far as I know, and I'm not really sure what that $23,000 does, but I did miss a meeting.
It's a happy feel good thing, you know that.
I think we should get
Is
some,
that too cynical?
I
Sorry.
think we should get some context out of it, whether we do it. Yeah, you don't wanna have no representation in economic development in the town.
We did ask during the presentation,
Yeah.
though, and he conceded it was sort of
Tony said he
not
can't.
operating fully, but
It should be coming up in the next board of selectmen meeting. I believe we're gonna fill the board. We got two people to put on that board at the next
And what do they do with the $23,000?
Study.
Cause I remember 10 years ago, we would fight over, should it be $200 or $400 for postage on postcards? Now we're at 23,000.
Yeah,
I don't know. I'm just saying, that's what we used to do.
I don't feel fully qualified to defend our budgets at this point, so.
I don't think you have to either. I just think.
I
There needs
believe
to be something.
they're bringing in a consultant, which is why they. That's part of it. That is a good portion.
But if they're bringing in a consultant, who is overseeing the consultant if they aren't really an active board? Who is keeping the consultant accountable? Who is hearing
I
anything?
believe it's going through Mike DeMotto, but that's a conjecture.
Okay,
I mean. Yeah, I think
Take
that,
5.
cut 5? Okay,
From where? Economic development. That way, they get a full
And then
board
they
and they
still
get a
have
big plan.
I would expect that,
Still
given
leave
that
someone with a
they're,
Pretty good budget.
they have like no chair and they have, people who have not been there, they're not full up. So I know you're gonna do something on it, but there's gonna be some gear up time. I wouldn't say they're gonna need the full budget because you gotta have folks there and discussing to even decide on, spending actually takes some due diligence. So, I would take it down 10.
Yeah, I don't go that far. Especially if they get a full.
Mr. Chairman, can I offer something from Willington Hill?
Yep.
I'm gonna take a gamble on getting beat up at the firehouse and, I think when you look at adding the $16,000 for gear back into the operating budget, it makes a total increase of like 12.9% over the current fiscal year. And so I'm gonna offer to reduce that gear allocation by 1 set of gear, or the money equal to 1 set of gear, which is taking 5,000 off of that 16 we just put in. moving us down to adding 11,000 instead of adding 16,000. And so that would come back down 4%, putting our increase, I think, at about 9% instead of a 13.
So that would be 160,560.
It
Yeah.
would be 60 by 60.
Yeah, that's what I just said.
Yes.
Oh, you're just
Up your
repeating it?
math.
Sorry.
Yep, 'cause he was-
Were you seconding?
And then you took off 6. The year is 22.8.
Yes, I'm sorry, I skipped to the 16, it was 16,800, I'm sorry.
So we're
I
at,
rounded by mistake, so what I'm saying is reduce that by $5,000.
yes, so we're adding 11,800.
11,800, correct, thank you.
Okay.
What's the number?
The request is 11.
The increase in the request is 11,800 and the total request is $161,360.
Okay.
Thank you.
161,
360.
360.
Thanks, Donna.
That's
I'm-
after 5,000 back. Okay, good.
That was after
Yeah.
reduced, yes.
I got numbers all.
So do we have consensus on EDC?
5, I think.
Yeah,
I
5.
don't wanna spend, that's too much, and yeah, they get a full board. Yeah, that's, have a,
I was essentially matching that.
yeah,
Okay.
Yeah, there could be
I think they offer value when there's enough of them there to do something, and, you have the right people on there.
And I would agree, what we do need to grow our grant list. That is the core problem here in this whole math equation that we're doing is that we aren't seeing any growth.
It's 1.2.
Well, we tried to grow it a lot, but it was the wrong project.
Right.
Okay,
Good schools might bring some interest in.
yeah, more houses, they put us in worse
That's
shape,
right.
yeah,
No, Wendy, you can't like.
residential
Thank
stuff.
you.
that doesn't help you. You know, that would help us. Yeah,
The other easy thing, which I think we already touched on, is the ARPA offset for human services, which would is $11,207. So that we can take off of what they are asking because we'd be offsetting it with the ARPA money. So then they would only need 3,000 to be whole, so.
Because who's tallying all this?
We are currently at $161,207.
Okay.
What did you say?
160.
Out of the 275,
Yeah.
so what's that, what's the balance?
114.
Okay.
We're taking 11,207 off. Because we have ARPA money to use for that. Yeah.
It's not. Donna,
Yes.
is the number for Wellington 1 with or without the proposed admin job?
Without.
The ambulance is without,
It's without it?
yes.
And did that remove about 12,775, because there was FICA and other stuff in there? And there was 400 for uniform too. So I'm wondering, do we take all that out?
Let's look at that because that's a good question.
Yes.
Alex, when you budgeted the payroll tax.
Yes, it did.
It out?
It did, it dropped to 13,000.
13,000, okay. Thanks, Alan.
Just over 13,000.
Okay, so while we're there on the ambulance, the budget request was $606,313. Okay, double check this with your numbers. Then we're adding in. Fund 17 was 20, now it's 10, so we have to cover 10,000. And the contribution from union was 15, it's only gonna be 5, so we're covering another 10. So we're covering 20,000, so we're going from 606,313 to 626,000.
Okay, that's if
your
we
number?
apply that 10,000.
That's,
Yeah, because the number that everyone had wrote down is 636 without any Fund 17 offset.
okay, so
But we-
what is the final decision on that? Of
Do
the
we
board?
want to apply 10,000 out of Fund 17? I would recommend that.
What, to take the 636 down to 626?
Mhm. That's a modest, you know, I mean, that's what we did this last year, right? It was 10, wasn't it?
I think so.
Or else it grew, it was 20.
Last year it was
It grew-
20.
It grew up from, it had gone down to 10. I think 10
Yes,
is like, let's split the difference this year, maybe.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
okay with
hopefully
it,
downward
as long as
trend.
we're not increasing the amount, I think that's fine.
Okay,
okay,
so
So-
626, 313,
626.
if you guys agree.
Yeah.
Now I have total reductions of $134,407. So does that match your math that you're tracking?
No, we got a different number.
Before that number, I had 168,207.
Okay, then let's
You want me
go,
to go through the list?
yeah,
What do
go
you-
down the list quick, start at the top.
So,
Public Works,
let me start at the treasurer, okay? I'm gonna
Yeah,
start from the top and go down to
treasurer.
$6,000.
yeah,
Zoning, or no, economic development, $5,000.
right,
Public Works, we were taking a total of 126,000.
transfer station,
Transfer station,
15K.
15,000.
yes.
Human Services, 11,207.
Yes,
$5,000 from Wellington Hill Fire Department.
so they are taking 5,000 out, but they're adding 22,800 minus 6 for their
Got it.
protective clothing.
So they're adding 11,800.
Yes, they're adding 11,800. Ambulance is adding 20,000. And Wellington One, the fire, is taking out 3,000 from equipment. For a total of budget reduction of $134,407. $134,000.
What was that second to last thing you said about Wellington One is adding for the bunker here?
We said we would take the 3,000 that we had put in towards
Okay.
apparatus repairs.
And what was the thing before that,
Wellington Hill.
saying it would go down?
They had 6,000 in their budget for gear. They needed 22,800, but they decided to take out 5 and only buy 1 set.
Right.
So that's an increase.
one set.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you. So 22,800 minus 6 plus 5. Did I say that?
Minus 5.
Minus 5. 22,800 minus 6 minus 5, 11,800.
Okay.
So we still have 140,593 to go, that's at 275. Yeah,
Wait, where are we at again?
we need another,
134,407.
that means we need 140,593 if we want to hit 275. But that hit 3 mils.
I would suggest, there's some admin costs that I think are kind of high.
Where?
Well, okay, in the selectmen budget, there's an admin fill-in line. It's in there for 2,500. We have successfully hired a full-time person. We don't spend that 2,500, at least in the last full year and spending this year, we don't spend anywhere near that. So I'm recommending we take that down to leave 1,000 in that budget. So take it down 1,500. That is in the selectmen's budget. Let me just, okay, it's on page 1 of the budget, first item. is it not first item, I'm sorry, second item, it's in for 2,500. It was adjusted to 500 in 2023, 24, or 2023. And then it was restored in 23, 24 this current year. And there's been nothing spent from it so far. And then it's put in for that same amount. I'm just saying, we haven't ever spent anywhere for close to that. I think if we leave 1,000 in, we'll be good.
So take it down 15.
Yep. And then in the CIP secretary, which is the next line down, that also is trending, is budgeted for 47,35. It was taken down to 27,35, but brought back up in the full year of this year. And we've spent 520 so far out of it. I think
What's it budgeted for?
47,35. So I would take, I suggested 2, but if you I didn't know if you wanted, how deep we could go on that. But I don't think it needs to be, I think it's, and one of the things to consider there is CIP definitely is discussing whether to meet more frequently in the off months, what we call the off months, not rather than the intensive weekly months. Because we just, and Jim pointed this out a lot, all the CIP people feel kind of this way, that we need to sort of amp up our planning, because capital is just, job one across the board, so we have a lot to do in the off months. I said 2, just because if we're gonna meet more, we're gonna need more secretarial, but,
2,000.
so that's 2,000.
CIP secretary, that would be, what line item is that?
Well, it's it would be,
127.
yeah,
27.
yeah. As far
In
as,
the
he's
select,
looking at the appropriation.
Yeah.
it's under
It would be
1.
under.
Yeah, it's under what?
It would be 111.
So Steph, total of 2,000 cut from selection.
Well, it would be 3,500.
Oh, 3,500.
Admin would be
15, yeah.
15,
Right.
CIP would be 3.
Okay.
Let's see, and then, where was that? There's some.
Can I
There's-
ask about, land use?
Yeah,
Because that is one of the higher budgets, so I don't have anything specific that I can suggest. It's just, if we're thinking in terms of cutting just 1%, what would that do to that budget?
Something terrible.
Nothing terrible? Then let's do it.
Planning and zoning.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So there was a switch for the software. And it's now being charged to planning and zoning, and it was being
Was
charged,
that why the increase?
yes, that's why the increase. It was being charged to the building official. So it's out of the building official's budget and in the planning and zoning budget, so that Mike Motto can keep an eye on the contract. And he did, he negotiated a lower rate, and that's the story.
okay.
so what was that cost or?
So the building permit system support is $12,000, but if you look at that line item, which is 171,500, you see that there wasn't any expense for FY 23 or FY 24,
Because it wasn't there before.
because it wasn't
Yeah.
there, it was in.
Can you orient me where that is on what page of the budget?
4.
Thanks.
You're looking at 330. in that one, 71 for 330.
Oh, the one that's budgeted for 3,500, you mean?
Go 2 lines down,
Oh.
it's called building permit system support.
Okay.
Oh, okay, gotcha. So did you say that there's some that could be shaved there?
No, because it's been removed from the building officials department.
Okay,
Yeah, which is on page 7, and that budget has a decrease of $11,127 because it was moved.
right.
Why don't we
Okay,
just, why don't we just take a percent out of there and let Mike figure out what it's gonna help them.
Okay, so
Or
his
something. Yeah, that's,
his budget's up like 10%, so, and with an overall increase of 14,219.
sure the health is getting paid more.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, that's probably driving a good part of it.
And he's still got the zoning,
Yeah.
but some of this stuff is underspent. Like, so,
I'll sign up to pull a couple grand out.
okay.
Did I hear 2?
Yeah.
Okay. Donna, we got
Did you
another
say
2.
2 or is that a poker kind of reference? So it could be 3? Okay.
Yeah. Not really moving the needle, but.
Bring that next week.
Donna, we got another 2 in planning and zoning.
$2,000.
2,000.
$2,000.
Yes.
Yeah, on the Wellington one, I would take down a couple things. Their presumption for raises is 3.8. That is quite a bit more than, that's a percentage point above what the town rate is, currently, I think. So, and they have, I think if we go to 3%, which is what they have in their actual budget this year, I think, is that their rate they have in, Donna? Is that your understanding? I mean, I think their current rate is 3%. That's what they've got in their. I would say, well, I don't know, I would take it down to either 3%, which would be a 37.24 savings, 3,724, or maybe take it down to 2.8 or 2.75, which is 4,670. Because I really don't think we should be projecting higher than the town right there.
Okay, good. Did you do the math? Do you have?
I did, but so do you guys, so do you want to do it? Do you want to do it 2.75 or 2.8, or do you want to do it 3, or do you, none of the above?
What is their increase in this current year? Was it?
No, I dug their stuff out.
3.79 is.
3 point, well, their proposed year or the year we're in? I don't
The year
know how
we're
I
in.
would know that.
You're right, because they
I
have
think
to,
it's 3%.
okay, so then we should keep it at 3.
Okay.
The thinking is,
Yeah.
if they fail to come to an agreement with their union, then it will stay at 3. So it'll stay at whatever it was in this current year.
Okay,
So I wouldn't presume it's gonna go higher. We definitely shouldn't do that.
in that case, it's 3,724 if we take it down from 3.823.
Say the number one more time.
3,724.
I get 4.
We could say,
Yeah, just round it.
okay.
Yeah.
All right,
No, I know.
Okay, so here's another fun one, folks. If you go to, I'm trying to see where it is. Okay, so back to the selectmen's budget. Now I lost it. Couple of yourselves. It
What was it about?
was the. I'll find it just a second. No, did you see something there? That looked like just gettable.
Vehicle maintenance, we did 85,000. And then we spent 67, and we asked for 85,000. So it's about we spent 56, and we got up to ask them if we went there.
Yeah, that's at the half year. So
Yeah, so it should be.
That's, is that how, which department is it? Is it Public Works?
I don't think so.
I think I kind of didn't think about going there because they're already
Oh, yeah,
spent.
no, it's Public Works.
You know. Consulting fees, engineering consulting fees.
That's, 180, line 183 out of the 50 grand, consulting engineer.
Yeah. Where is it? Should be how nice. Shoot. I mean, I can tell you what it is, but I can't cite the number.
Page 5,
Thank you, sir.
183, 500.
Okay. Yeah, I was thinking 25,000, 2,500 out of consulting land use. Because it's always in for 10,000. We spent in the last full year, went down to, we only spent 1,700. Then it was they took it down to 7,500. We've spent 744 so far this year. I think it's reasonable to go down to 5,000, leave them with 5,000 there. Same for consulting engineer, public works. Because, this year we haven't spent anything and they have 7,500. I realize this is one of those things that when you get into, it could change, but I just sort of feel like in this year, leave 5,000, that'll cushion, that'll get us started. If there's a problem, that'll cushion it somewhat. And then if, the unforeseen happens. And I realize.
Are you saying drop to cut 10 or cut 5?
25.
I'm saying,
2,500, oh.
yeah, I'm saying
Okay.
2,500 out of each, so 5.
So
So
5.
2,500 out of.
Out of consulting.
And 2,500 out of, Board of
Yeah.
Selectmen.
Yes. Well, it's not under planning and, I guess it
Don't we
is.
have a line in there for an engineer? There should be.
Line 183 is consulting engineers.
Yeah, I think it is land use, yes, it is land use.
Yes.
So 2,500 out of that 7,500. And then for
Consulting engineer.
consultant for the other one's public, the other one's public works, really, consulting engineer. And they'd still be left with 5,000, which I think is, it's not, there's no pattern of, we've got something underway and we've had to use it heavily in the last couple of years, so.
Total of 5,000 more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got that down?
Yes. I got it.
What's your tally?
I'm sorry, did you say you're cutting consulting engineering for
Public Works,
Public Works?
2,500.
I just asked that you keep in mind, we may be coming back to you on that, there's 2 projects for which there might be federal money that we might have to have a consulting engineer submit a report for, and I don't want to give up $3 million in grants because we didn't have the $5,000.
Sure.
Write the report.
Okay. I mean, there'll still be 5,000 in there, so
Yeah,
I
there,
wouldn't think the
well,
report would.
I don't know
exceed
what it's
that.
gonna cost, but it's, I'm just. Letting
Yeah.
we're applying for these grants, there's no
Hey, and
feeling on whether we get it or not, but if you don't ask, I can tell you the answer is no.
we always like to spend money to make more money back. Grants.
When it's multiple percentages.
Yeah, yeah.
Striking that or
No, he's saying, he's just giving us a
He'll come
caveat.
back if he needs it. I'll come back if I
makes
need it.
sense. They're taking out 2,500 from each.
Yeah, so it's one of them is out of land use, so basically planning and zoning, and the other one is
So what about page 1? Says administration fill in.
Yeah, we did that.
We already did that.
But we already did that.
Yeah.
Yep, and the
Okay,
CIP
that's-
secretary.
We took 1,500 out of
Okay, I have
that.
it on that page.
Yeah, and we took 2,000 out of CIP secretary right under it.
It was 1,500 out of the,
Admin fill in.
I thought we were leaving, you know, that.
So where are we at total, Donna?
632. Total reductions.
148.
632.
632.
Is
Is that what you had?
I have 175.
Okay.
But hold on, I don't recall.
Lana's always, she's in there adding stuff back in while we're not.
134, 407. We are taking another 1,500, 2,000 from the admin fill-in and the CIP secretary. 2,000 from planning and zoning, 4,000 from Wellington Hill one. And then the 2,500s from consulting engineers, total 5,000. Okay.
I don't know, but.
So the original number we wanted to get was 275. To get to a 3 mil increase, you got 148, 632. Taken off so far, so that leaves a delta of 126, 368.
I would, propose or ask to consider, going to the senior center for a little bit because, you know, I'm trying to. No. This is stuff that I'm going from the way that the costs are trending and their utilities. They are not the coordinator. I'm definitely not cutting that. You guys, if you do wanna, if you wanna go there, but not me.
What page is that?
Where is it?
It's scared you guys.
I know.
I wasn't here.
Come on, you guys, bring it, bring it.
You know, I brought the whole thing up because I thought you'd like to be self-reliant. Don't want to be self-reliant.
We just asked a
Oh, I'm
question.
gonna get through you guys and you go.
Pitchforks.
No, I
I
meant,
just wanna say I'm a Democrat. Oh, sorry, that just slipped out.
oh, so you don't like people being self-reliant?
185.
One, thank you.
Oh, my God.
549.50.
Cutting the senior budget, wait, you don't like those people?
I didn't say it. We don't like old people, we don't like
Okay,
children, we
I'm
don't like
just suggesting where
firefighters.
I'm seeing savings. If you guys don't think there's savings,
Where are you
I
seeing
will
it?
fold.
Where are you seeing?
I'm trying to find where the hell it is.
I can believe you're gonna.
Think it- Was it electric stuff?
Yeah, yeah, it's so in electric, there. Yeah, the electric's trending, that if we made a $2,000 cut, it would leave the 5,100 budgeted there. If anyone knows some insider information, Pete,
I don't.
that there's a reason for it to spike.
If it's under general utilities, it's gonna, the sewage is spiking because their sewage is failing or we just put $10,000 worth. Oh, wait,
That would
put
be
$8,000 worth of pumps in and $2,000 worth of brackets for the other pump, so we wouldn't fall into the bottom.
What?
That wouldn't come out of their operating budget. There's a special account.
No,
for that.
yes,
Yeah,
well, not the septic, the water. So
Yeah.
we will pump water in and we've got a contract for that, pumping the sewage back out, that's separate.
But I'm talking about electric.
Electric, I
There
don't
should
know.
be no
about
poop in the electric.
Rates have been going up.
Something's gotta run that pump, I'm guessing, but other than that, I don't know.
So
Yeah.
here's if this helps us, they've got 7,100, you know, in the last full year, they spent 4,000. They kept the 7,100, and this year so far, they're trending 2,400. And, their request is going down somewhat, I just think it could go down more, so it's going down.
Electric.
680, I'm thinking, yeah. It's a senior center electric.
Are they doing more now and more hours because they have
What were they
coordinated?
No, they were always doing that.
Six.
Page 6. And it's kind of in the middle,
Like a third down,
so,
185.
and this is one of those budgets where if we ask them to cut $2,000, they can take it from anywhere. But
right.
it does look like,
that for anybody too, so.
right, but it does look like their electric is low. Lower than their.
That's right. That's right.
So,
And,
How about some of
their
the,
maintenance,
that's what I was gonna bring up.
because but see, here's the thing on maintenance, we went way up, we doubled their maintenance in the current fiscal year. Because they were, you know, they didn't have money to be facile on regular repairs and they have stuff that, you know, breaks down and everything, so we did that. They're trending that they spent 7,500. But I'm just thinking that there may be some movement to bring that down some. I mean, I don't know if they're gonna spend the whole 1,500, but it was a large enough increase because we doubled the amount. So I don't know if we wanna do anything there. I was thinking, take it from 1,500 to 12,000 and we'd probably be okay, but they may, you know, so overall that would be, yeah. That would be a $5,000 hit, but leave the new position alone, which is, as you know, a hefty growth in the budget.
If you're on that same thought process, the 20,000 that the Board of Ed put in for the additional maintenance for the schools. I think because CIP put the full boat in, I think that would be a fair pull from the Board of Ed budget. They put $10,000 in for each. I think you would pull that.
Right?
Yeah, on the school side, just knowing that we could go back and I talked to Peter about this the other day, we're doing that already for this current budget, looking for small project repairs that we've already done to pull off the 1 million. So I think it still leaves a buffer. So you could pull that 20,000, it's 10,000 each school that they put in for additional maintenance. I think they would be okay with that because the full amount is in CIP. I think the other thing that you could do look at that wouldn't necessarily hit the operating budget on the Board of Ed side. Is that on the CIP side, you put $20,000 in for plumbing. I think it'd be a fair statement to say because you did 20,000 per school. You put the bond in year 2 and you have the 1.5 million per se in year 1, I think that would be a fair request to have them take it out of the $1 million that's there, or the 1.5 million that's there.
40?
So, yeah, so there was 3 numbers. So the first one is out of the Board of Ed operating budget. That is the $20,000 in maintenance. It was $10,000 per school. And then I think the second item would be 20,000 for hall and 20,000, the third item would be 20,000 for center. And those are both for plumbing projects. And I think
Line 13 on your spreadsheet.
we could easily remove, if that could be taken out, I think it helps your number. Because we could then access that fund. What I'm saying is, the board can still access funding through the $1 million of the 1.5 million. This is my point.
Okay.
Does it
So
work that
where-
way?
with that, are you talking about a reduction in CIP and in the operating or?
Both, it's both, correct. So $60,000 swing is, I believe. But we'll see what Donna says about it.
$40,000 will come out of Peter's budget,
Correct,
and what is the?
but it's Board of Ed side, Peter. It's Board of Ed, CIP.
Got it.
We'll wake you when there's another one.
Take something out of my budget.
And then, so the 40,000 it's a 40,000 total is on a CIP, it comes out of his budget, but it's really a Board of Ed project, and it's two $20,000 projects for
Okay.
plumbing
Very
is
good.
what it is. And then the other $20,000 is out of the Board of Ed operating budget, and that's the funding that they put in because of the non-lapsing account being fully spent. They can use their operating budget as long as, when we go back to town meeting, people approve the things that we have prepared. If that makes sense, so you can take out 20,000.
Since we're here
So
right
where
now,
we got 80.
can I ask something?
Two left to find.
That's up to you
Could
guys,
we get the Board of Ed to give a 1%?
that's gonna be up to them, what you're gonna ask. You have to
Is that a
identify.
possibility?
Chance.
No chance.
Not a chance.
We're asking
Why is that?
everybody else to give a little bit,
I
1%.
just give you 60 grand. That's 3/4.
Kind of a $10 million budget.
It's really 20 because.
20 out of the operating, 40 out of the CIP, but it all goes to the school.
Could,
No, that came out of my budget.
I could do it, but your budget.
200K already, and I've
Bill,
got a smaller
Yes.
budget.
how about the carpet at the schools in year one?
Is that as an additional?
It's it's in the CIP, Peter's budget for 24K. But we could use the shock absorber money for that.
60 grand, okay.
All right, so that's good.
So we're really.
Right, that's the trade-off, I know it's coming out of CIP, it's not set up Board of Ed operating, but it's coming off the bottom line without impacting
Right.
where we're stuck. I heard, so yes, carpet and that was in year one too.
Okay, so that's some good news, you guys. That's $64,000 out of the selectmen's budget.
Where'd you get the 64?
The carpets is,
Oh,
well,
Yeah.
out of CIP, yeah,
so how much was the carpet?
24.
24, okay.
Yeah, so there was 40,000 for the plumbing, like you said, and then 24 for the carpets at both schools, 12K at both schools. That is in line 930 in Peter's budget. So.
All right, so.
So that's,
you now, Jason.
so then you'd have to
That's
do
plumbing and carpet. Is that-
64 plus 3,500 that we already cut from there. And
I think it's time.
I think it's 44.
Yeah, I thought
Did
it
you-
was 45. 3,000, 1,500.
for the select, so we cut,
It was 20K, 10K out of each school for maintenance. Another 20K out of hall and 20K out of center for plumbing.
Plumbing.
So, and where did the carpet come from?
So
Year one.
year one.
So, but wasn't it, what was out of the CIP part of that?
64 out of CIP.
64,
Well, and so 40,000
No.
to,
no,
what, 40,000 for the first part and 24 for the carpeting?
yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
So total 64 out of line 930, which is in the selectmen's budget, which is line 111 in our list here, which already had a cut of 3,500. So you could take 64,000 plus 3,500, which is $67,500.
Could you repeat the 3,500?
We already had a cut of 1,500 for the admin fill-in and 2,000 for CIP secretary. All under line 111.
Underline 111,
Mhm.
okay, so, yeah, I got that.
So Donna, what does your number come to, what's the tally?
My tally is $217,632. And it leaves a balance of $57,368. To get
To
to
make
275,000 even.
Did we take the 40,000 out of the Board of Ed's budget?
I took 20 out of.
20.
20.
Okay, yes, all right, because I didn't. hear you.
That's actually brings it to 237. 237, 632.
Oh. 237? Oh, did we, okay,
So
so we're
less
down
than
to
what?
40, so we're less than 50 grand.
What's the?
37,000. 360.
I got,
Yeah,
What did you close the library for you? Anybody notice?
oh,
I'm done. I got like 14 grand we can get from the library, I think. Relatively reasonably.
14?
14,000.
They notice it on Saturday.
Relative. See what everybody else thinks, but for the director and the assistant director,
Library.
yeah, on the library. So they have them,
54 grand is one of them.
yeah, 55 or
Almost
56 and
56.
46, we'll say.
yeah,
I think we could probably take it down to 49 and 40.
You think you're gonna go to director for that?
that's
I don't know. I mean,
that's
That's the whole
the,
thing, it's the whole thing, that whole,
What do you call
the MLS. If you,
Yeah.
if you have the MLS, she's saying that's 56 is at the bottom, the starter for that.
what does that do for
You
you?
know, for the credential.
What does that really?
Well, it
do
makes
for
you a library director,
Yeah.
you know?
It changes the title.
It's the library science degree, it's a, you know, it's,
Yeah, I don't know. I was just thinking.
I mean, I think
So,
yeah, it's low end for a library director.
It is, but.
But it depends on how many hours they're putting in.
So it's
I
full
don't know,
time.
the thing's
It's
been
full
screwed
time.
up.
Full time.
Yeah.
On the one hand, the thing's been screwed up for so long that
I mean, they're just both going up. Like obviously the director is gonna go up a little bit more, but that's going up $12,000 from what we paid. Or no, more than that.
so you went down to lose $5,000?
I think that, I mean, that's $11,000 right there, and then. The programmer, I know she. That it would change, and they were trying to do different things.
Well, I didn't figure it was coming from.
Yeah, so 3,000 off of that is what I was thinking, it would bring that down to 15,000, it's still going up 3.
So what do you
What
think
they
total?
approved. That's 14,000 right there off the library.
Yeah.
It's stiff, but what I would say is they do have, they have, revenue. Offsetting revenue that they can, you know, apply to the next fiscal year budget. And they have seen some savings in internet and some other things. So, you know, but they have interest income that's trending to make up the difference
Yeah.
in that. So it's like they, at the, whatever, at the end of the fiscal, it's not even the, it's the end of the last year, calendar year, they had 8,300 in interest income alone, and then they've got some other donations and such, as some of that stuff is targeted, but they, I think they could offset if they wanted to go ahead with their plan as they've articulated it. They could close the gap with that.
I think that's a good observation.
So 10 or 15? 15?
I'd say 15.
How about
Every
more?
little bit helps, right? On our end.
What do you think?
Sure. I think if they invested their money, they could like be almost self-sufficient.
They did invest in money, that's why they've got interest income that's
No, that's
offsetting.
still sitting in CDs.
No, and it's, and
I mean, like,
this is-
like, actually, like real.
Look,
So we're
like you guys
22,
see how-
368?
Yep, this is like tough coming down to, you know, the goal we set for ourselves here. This is not, you know, this is not something any of us want to be doing every year, right?
We do it every year.
Well, not to this degree,
We do actually.
you know.
We've never had a tax.
Well, Jeff, you just jump right in and suggest something.
But I mean, that's part of the problem too, though. Like we've
Right.
stayed stagnant so long with our taxes, which is awesome. Nobody wants to pay more taxes, but we've stayed so low so long, we've gotten ourselves into this hole. So, I mean, well, not a hole, like, you know what I'm trying to say, though. We've gotten to a place where now we have to do something. Instead of doing small incremental steps, it looks worse than it
Okay,
is.
I personally don't think of myself when I think of a tax increase, because I can absorb it, but yeah, I think of people that have a hard time, and then I think of them, I try to put myself.
13.4% of the town's in poverty.
Yeah,
I get that. I mean, I grew up in poverty. I understand what that's like. I just, because we have stayed so low so long, instead of making small jumps up.
Well, we did do it. We did have that anyway.
well, there's things we have to fix, I think.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, we're in a position now where we have to do.
I mean, what's the mill
bigger
rate
than
right
anything
now?
else.
31, something.
When I moved
32,
into town, it was
3216, isn't it?
Yeah.
3216.
When did this,
Right?
I've been here for
Thank
20
you.
years.
yeah,
I knew you were
I don't
there.
know. I'm just saying.
You want the right answer.
I had to look at
There's
her.
a time in this about the buildings and how I got broke.
Okay. So we're 22.
Phil, can you find
Yeah,
that much in your
that's what
budget?
I was
How
gonna
much?
say.
22.
22,368.
That's for you to say.
I give you 80,000.
I didn't go. I didn't give you anything, you just took it.
Oh my gosh. So where are we?
22,368 left to get the no increase. How much? 22,368.
The other thing we have not talked about is the applied fund balance,
Yeah,
how much we want to apply.
Well, we gotta hear.
because did we do that calculation with 500,000 as a placeholder?
Yeah,
Oh, okay, well. We could rock and roll then.
but can we? So Donna recommended 500.
What's left?
Can we go, what would happen if we went to 7?
If you went to 7, your fund balance would be 2.1 million.
At the end of this fiscal year,
At the
start
end-
of next fiscal?
At the end of this fiscal year, I'm forecasting it to be 2.8 million. So if you took 700,000 off of the 2.8 and you brought it down to 2.1, you would be at 9.9% of the budgeted expenditures, or 1.2 months of expenditures.
What is it that they recommend, 12? 10? 8? That's a
You know,
12.
it's a,
It's
to
a
say
12.
it's 12, it's right in the middle.
I called her, we're trying to figure that, you know, like.
If we drop, if we applied, I'm just asking this, I'm not, but if we applied 800,000, what percentage of the fund balance would that be?
9.4.
9.4.
And what would that drop the mill rate to? Okay.
Yeah, I love the building.
2.63. With 700,000 total applied. If you went to 800,000. Drops the mill rate to 2.42.
700,000 is a good number.
And we're still in the window for what they.
So what's the
suggest we
window?
have.
Where are we at with that? How many months?
It's 1.1 month.
I don't like that.
I don't like that either. What do you think?
With the
The one thing-
700,000 or with the 8?
88.
What is it with the 7?
With the 7, yeah, 1.2 months.
What's making me pause is that I can't recall a year like this where it looks like the Board of Ed's not gonna return any funds. And it looks like, Pete, are you gonna return anything? It doesn't look like he is.
Wait, this is a
So-
pre-cut budget.
So like normally at this time, we kind of know like, oh, we're thinking 200,000 or 300,000 is coming back. And then oftentimes a little bit more than that comes back. That doesn't seem like it's happening at all, right? We're like down to the bone. So we're not gonna have like the cushion upon the cushion.
Right, right.
So I don't like cutting it, using too much.
Just a reminder, the auditor, when he reports each year, says that the goal would be 3 months of expenditures in reserve. Wellington has always been very conservative to stay at the target 8 to 12%, which typically keeps us around 1.5 months. Roughly, or as you're hearing tonight, 1.2.
And, what's golden about the 3 months? Is it in case you have to
What the
default?
auditor said, that's what's golden about it.
But I
That's
just
why you
wondering,
hire a
I'm wondering,
professional
what,
to tell you that.
how does that let you sleep at night? You know, it's like, oh, we could last 3 months or we could only last 1 month?
That's three.
I would rather last 3, yeah.
What's this sleeping at night thing? I haven't.
I mean, 3 months is one fiscal quarter, so.
In case the state loses their checkbook.
Yeah,
you
that's
don't
true,
lose
yeah,
your-
maybe that's what they're thinking.
Something like that.
So if we applied, just to kind of know, is if we applied 600,000, what would that make the mill rate?
2.84 increase. 2.84 mils.
And what's it leave for reserve? How long?
Well, it's not gonna go up
1.3
very
something.
much,
Yeah.
yeah. 1.3 or something, I mean,
Even with the recommended 500,000, it's not gonna get much over 1.4.
Yeah.
We're not getting it right.
see,
Just taking less out of the fund, going with the recommended amount out of the fund budget, not fund budget.
General fund.
Budget with a D, because of the number of line items that you cut where both Phil and I have said, yeah, that's a deep cut, we may need to come back. I think that balance being healthier is better than not. Just saying.
so what were you weighing in on? I mean, what
The
amount?
I was, so, your
Same
original,
Oh,
Donna
500,
recommended was
500.
500, and
Okay,
then you went to 600, and then 700, and then 800, and I'm thinking 500 probably good, because, we may need to be coming back for some of these line items, but.
oh, do we know?
No, I did. And,
Yeah. We didn't make a decision, we didn't like take anything off the senior center. When we were discussing, I think we got a little derailed. We were, because we saw the light at the end of the tunnel, we just kind of started galloping back to the barn. It was, talking about the electrical.
Yeah, I took 5,000 off.
okay, you're right.
Oh, okay, for the whole
You
thing,
got
okay,
it.
so,
Right, she's paying attention.
okay. You don't misdirect me. Anything else that anyone saw?
For that.
Each everybody else skills.
I'd like to hear about the positions that you have on the table. Are there any that you see as more, can wait, or is there anything else you have up your sleeve that?
No, I wouldn't feel comfortable weighing the positions. I think if you're not gonna make appropriations tonight, and you're looking for additional funds, and you gave me a target, I would just make phone calls to every board member, not have a board meeting, just get their feeling on where it was, you know, and bring that back to you next week as opposed to balance, because I don't want to waste something that if they put them all in the budget, I think they would say they're all important.
Yeah, they all have good underpinning for the reasons why, I mean, in my opinion.
And if we could get them down to as close as 1%, that would be great.
Get one down.
It's almost a $10 million budget.
That's 99 grand.
Yeah.
That's,
What,
Are you saying 1% beyond what?
Well,
Is there a
the
number on it?
total of what you're asking.
Or
for,
off of
yeah.
the operating budget?
Everything
I'm
that,
not
what
sure.
you're asking for, the main figure's what, $990 something thousand,
Yeah.
right? So yeah, if we could get 1% off of that.
What I give you so far, 20, you're saying off the operating budget, that's what you're at 20.
And you could talk to the Board of Ed, come back next week, let us know what we're looking at.
you mean, so you're talking about 100,000?
Yeah, roughly,
Well, I think,
close to it.
I would-
Doesn't have to be 100,000, but some gesture would be nice. I mean,
I would add in, I would say, you know, starting after what has already been put forth. From.
well, he already took money out. of
He already
his
took
operating
20
budget,
out.
So he's got 20 out.
So there's 80 more to go.
another 80.
I don't think it's unreasonable to at least ask to have a discussion, see if you have anything at all, and if you don't, come back to us and tell us that. I can do that, keep going here.
I mean, at the beginning, though, we said we wanted 250, we need 22, 368.
We don't have to stop there, though.
No, we don't have to stop there, but I think this is a year where we really need everything in the Board of Ed, in their budget.
The general government would say the same thing, and you just took $180,000 out of it. So I'm just saying.
Yeah, everybody,
The
everybody's
stuff that
not.
we took isn't, or suggested to take, isn't mandated.
But we're not
There's
asking.
stuff that's, you
Have
can
the
look
discussion.
all you want, I'm just saying, like, there's,
You can't-
most of their increase in their budget is due to this stuff beyond everybody's control.
Yeah,
It
it
has
is.
to be done.
Jason, would you be okay though with the idea of?
I mean,
Phil
asking for
Phil
more.
going back to the Board of
Yeah,
Ed for
go back
conversation,
and,
knowing what the whole town is facing
yeah.
and
I
see
just-
what could be done.
I've just got to defend my budget, Jason.
No,
I'm just telling you,
understand.
No, I get it.
No, it's fair.
Just-
And we're not asking to take money out of mandates, we're just. asking
I
to
think
take
we
the
understand
money
that.
out.
We need to fix schools, we need.
No, I know,
It's
it's just
important.
something that I'm.
Yeah, no, I agree that, you know, I really think that teeing up the capital in a way that's smart going forward instead of, you know,
And we
in a
appreciate the
one-legged
movement,
way
Bill,
is a
what
good
you-
idea.
You've done so far, so just
Yeah.
have a conversation, see what it.
Yeah, and I think it would be important for you all too, I mean, if you said, look at 23, and I think that's your point, I'm not sure. But if you said, look at it, if. I'm gonna tell you flat out, the Board of Ed is not gonna come back and say, we'll give you $225,000, they're not gonna do
No, we don't
that,
want to,
right?
yeah.
So you're talking about 100 as a general number, you're looking at getting to your target and you need $23,000. I can go to the Board of Ed and say. They want $23,000, that's what, you know. What are your thoughts on that? I could do that as well, I'm not sure. It's a different conversation because, you know, whether we like it or not, it's a position, that's what you're talking about. You're not going to hit 80,000 without hitting positions or plural positions, that's what you're getting.
Yeah.
Okay,
Well, if we go up higher, the only position that we're claiming, if we're talking about $80,000, you're asking for $80,000 for the facilities manager. So it's not even a position that you have now.
Well, yeah, but the whole point, I think, is to protect that, because we've got the capital plan up and rolling. And we've done, shock absorbing, all kinds of stuff already. I just think going without it is
Somebody's gonna.
ill-advised, yeah.
But whether it's that guy or we hire like a consultant, to do it, somebody's gonna do it. Somebody's gonna wanna get paid.
So I guess my point is. The $23,000, if the 23 is 80, is the impact that great on the taxpayer? The difference for you to put forward, you're not going from 3 mils to 2 mils, you're going from 3 mils to 299.
Yeah.
But we're going through a budget, taking $2,000 out here.
I agree.
There,
Well, that's what I'm saying, like the 23,000 is that.
a $10 million budget's a little easier to find $20,000 out of than.
And I gave you 84 already, I think.
Yeah, between CIP and operating.
Yeah.
84,000. I didn't have to say any of those items, guys,
Yeah.
just to
Yeah.
be real blunt. I didn't have to say any single
Yeah.
one of those items.
Right.
So it comes out of his budget, but it's still, we're going to a different well, it's not hitting the taxpayer. That's what you're trying to get at. So it doesn't matter whether it's the Board of Ed operating budget, it's the big well altogether.
So you'll talk to the Board of Ed?
Yep.
Okay. Is everybody else set for this evening?
I hope so.
Alright. So,
I am curious, just, this is what happens every year. We do this, and then people go off and get on social media and just start saying things like, oh, CIP is is raising by 10%, which isn't true. Now it's really not true. But I think it's not fair to blame any one group for why this situation is what it is. I think we all know, and I think what we all should be saying is what is happening with this special ed. I think it's disingenuous to say that Board of Ed is asking for this huge increase and blame it all on them. I don't think that's fair. But I know that's what's gonna happen. And I just wanna say, like, you guys, you have a responsibility to present it correctly. And
I will.
I-
be on social media.
well, I don't mean that, but even at the transfer station,
No, just even talking to folks and stuff is, and not for nothing, but the budget increases, what did you end up with? 8, year over year,
876.
8.7. And you ended up with 8 and then 9 counting CIP, right? They're not that far apart. It's a weird year. Things have come home to roost. So, I mean, it's,
it's not the end.
Still need to have.
Donna, can we be a 501c3 and ask for donation?
Locals and we need to start pressuring the state
Yeah.
to start
She
paying.
has a
either
very good
more
point.
What'd she
Just
say?
repeat that.
about starting to talk to our district people, starting to talk to our legislature and making sure that they either provide more financing for this or start changing the way they do this. If you look at the trends, I was looking up some statistics a couple of days ago on the placements and how much higher they are overall across the state, not just in our little town. The impacts that it's having on everybody's budget, but the way the state has it set up, as Phil explained to me last meeting. They have it set up because it's a private organization. They keep raising the prices and the state has done nothing to kind of tamper that or find a better solution. But the only way we're gonna change the way it's structured is fighting at our legislature level too. So, I mean, the townspeople, that's why I was trying to ask Phil if there was like more information out there for people to understand the impact of these placements and the rise in autism with children that's causing a lot of this drive. And this is the legislature that put this in place and is putting this financial burden on every town in the state, not just, you know, our town. And it has risen a lot. The numbers, there was a pretty huge increase when I saw from COVID as well, with these numbers, much higher rates. So it's not, like I said, it's not just our town. So, I mean, maybe people may wanna, when they're talking about that, maybe try to get a little more information. So we're, you know, we're actually talking to the people in town. You know, we wanna protect our kids and we wanna protect our seniors, the most part of it. And fixing our buildings. Yeah, none of us wanna pay more taxes either, you know, but maybe we can help our neighbors. Those of us that have a better financial, maybe we can help our neighbors in some other way. You know, maybe as a town, we can think about, you know, how to raise money for some of the seniors or do something. I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there, like, you know, taxes are a big burden for a lot of people, but there are some people that are financially okay and financially sound. So, you know, we all have to pull together now. That's just my thoughts, but that's it.
My thoughts are, we could encourage people to vote a different way.
Well,
I know that Phil told us anecdotally that, one kid, you know, for one day was just transportation alone on an outplacement was $452, I think you said. I mean, that's a limo ride, right? Back and forth to Hartford or wherever.
And that's negotiating with other districts to try and share.
So, yes, so as far as like state oversight or some kind of, you know, bearing down on what's reasonable, because it's hitting small town Connecticut hard.
If there's anything we can do, and I'm asking the Board of Ed, like just give us direction. If there's letters or something, phone calls we can make.
Yeah.
I think we'd all be willing to do that.
All right, we'll move on. All right, any correspondence? Present to speak.
Just wait.
Public participation is desired and encouraged. Speakers will be limited to time and appropriateness of comments to maintain progress. Stay on topic and maintain decorum. Do we have anybody for present to speak? Arthur?
Arthur Christensen, 14 Birch Meadow Lane. I am a Board of Education member, but I want to make it very clear, I am not speaking for the entire board. You're asking us to cut 1% out of our budget. Let me explain, $858,000 of our increase is outplacements, 7 outplacements, almost $1 million by themselves. So that leaves us with the 4 things we asked for. The staff support specialist at $27,000, a 0.21% increase to our budget. Building maintenance, which we get back to you, so I'm not even gonna talk about that one. $35,000 for a part-time special ed reading teacher specialized in a reading technique that would help over 21% of our kids. That is a 0.38% increase to our budget. And finally, the famed facilities director at $81,553, 0.89% of our budget. A position we wouldn't have to put in our budget if anybody else in the town would bother to put it in their budget or bother to actually get up, because all I hear from the town is we have buildings to fix, we have things we have to do. Why is it my board? Why is it our board that actually takes the initiative to do it and we get penalized for it? You mentioned if there's anything you want to write Charlene M. Russell Tucker, because we're getting 70% back for our outplacements. And according to Connecticut State Statute 10-76G, we should be getting 90% because we are on the lower third of the grant list of the state. That entitles us to 90% reimbursement, and we are only getting 70. If you want action there, there's 20% for 7 outplacements. It'll get you a lot closer to what we need to be.
can I have those names again?
Charlene M. Russell Tucker, she is the Deputy Director of the State Board of Education. I don't appreciate the move to cut for an arbitrary number. You're 22,000 away from another arbitrary number of 3 mils. I get you have to set goals, but what difference does that make if you stop at the 22 now? 3 point what? 3.13, 15 maybe? Okay, so you find 25 to cut. Now you're at 2.99. Again, all these things are just numbers, but when you look at the impact of what you're asking to cut, a staff support specialist, that bleeds into our substitute budget, that saves us money in another area. Building maintenance that we wouldn't have asked for, except that we drained our non-lapsing fund to not come back to you to ask for more money this year to cover our additional outplacements. We felt we were more than responsible with the budget that we proposed, and what we are asking for is a 1.4% increase in things that you could say would be nice, except that they're needed for the 21% of kids who get special ed, to help any kind of the maintenance in the buildings, and to get moving on the buildings that we need to repair, something that I run on, and something that I'm gonna continue to fight for this year, next year, the following year. I'll be back here in front of everybody, as loud as I am now, to tell you that we need the money to do this, because I'm tired of the roofs being kicked down the road. We are running out of time for the HVAC grant, because if we don't get that grant, we're not getting new HVAC because it's ridiculously expensive. I understand it sucks to do it now. I understand we're in a horrible economic climate. We don't have a choice. Thank you.
Thanks for your insight, Arthur. Anybody else present to speak? Peter?
Peter Wiltindrich, 97 Trask Road. I just want to ask about the public hearing date, when all of this comes before the town. When is that? And would like to also ask that when we have that public hearing, that we have a detailed presentation of town's general government budget, the Board of Education budget, and most importantly, the CIP budget, because I don't think most townspeople understand, as you all do, and have some of the people in this room, how that CIP budget affects everything, particularly this year. So you could just let us know, maybe it's in the calendar.
It is on the calendar.
It's on the calendar. Is it the end of April?
It's April 10th, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah,
So
and then the town meeting is
So it's coming
24.
fairly soon.
Keep in mind, it's a Wednesday.
Thought it was a Tuesday. I thought it was.
No, we did, remember we switched that.
We switched
Won't do it
because of
there was-
conflict with the budget.
Maybe
Just think about it.
just to summarize, you all had a chance to immerse yourselves in this, but that's the first.
Oh, you're right.
That's the first opportunity for the rest of the town to understand all of this. Be especially helpful if we could have a screen of some sort where we could see the budget if a person from town has a question about a particular area of the budget. Because I think we always want to have a choice and always want to be able to act on how our town does its budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Do we have anybody else?
Yeah, quick. I just want to respond to your comments here, and thank Arthur for willing to be passionate and be loud. I appreciate you standing up for that as strongly as you did. And also just now, based on the changes here tonight, the CIP budget is not increasing taxes this year. It's everything else. And I'm tired, it's really frustrating to hear that said over and over again, and we are really not doing enough there. But also guys, thank you for the hard work tonight. It was good discussion and tough decision, so appreciate it.
Thanks, Jim. Bill, did you have a comment? Somebody has there. John Mitchell?
Hey, can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
So I just wanted to reiterate what Arthur said. He is 100% correct, and I back him 110%, that him and I both ran for Board of Education, talking to the people of Wellington, saying that we were going to put forward a facilities director. So this shouldn't be a surprise to anybody on the left or the right, because I spoke to everybody about it. This is something the town needs. This is what our students need, and I'm with him. We're gonna fight to get this facilities director and make sure it's in there. Thank you.
You done? And do we have anybody else? No, okay, so good and welfare.
I actually do. And I'll be brief. For those of us who went through, school systems, you guys realize that Wayne Girardi passed away. Gym
You wanna-
teacher for about
Do you want to say a little bit about?
35 years.
35, yeah.
Great guy.
It was.
We have anybody else? All right, well, thank you, everybody, for this evening, and call meeting to adjourn then. Thank you.
I think you have to.
Well, you should vote on that.
Move to adjourn.
Do we have a second? Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Too much of a hurry.
Peter?
Do I just click end?
Yes.
Bruce.